Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of intense racing action in the UK sim racing community's Porsche Cup Season 7, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 8 of 15, and we're here in the Spanish sunshine for the one and only Circuito de Jerez Ángel Nieto. Named after the infamous Spanish motorcyclist 9-footers Ángel Nieto Roldan, this circuit is more commonly associated nowadays with motorcycle-based racing, particularly World Superbike Championship, being the past has played host to many a racing format on four wheels. Perhaps most infamously, the Formula 1 series, and particularly the 1997 Formula 1 Grand Prix, which was a showdown between Jack Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher. But today is going to be a showdown between our drivers across the gold and silver classes, as well as in the Teams Championship, as we move our way into the formal second half of the season, if you don't include the mid-season break, which occurred a couple of weeks ago. And indeed, right now, the heat is starting to intensify up and down the paddock as all our drivers look to build up their points and indeed try to make sure those championship campaigns are well on the ultimate high and underway. But as we get ready to go racing today, we'll take you through the schedule in due course. We'll welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side, only available on the official UKSimRacing YouTube channel. Indeed, if you go to youtube.com and search for UKSimRacing or UKSR, you can tune in there. And if you're not subscribed to the channel right now, we definitely recommend you make sure you do so that way you can stay up to date with all the latest racing action in terms of live broadcasts and the highlight reels that follow after here at UKSimRacing. In the quarantine booth, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain and Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we're bringing all your racing action tonight, and indeed for the entirety of the season. Indeed, what a season it has been thus far, and we've still got plenty to go. And let's give you a recap of that calendar and what still lies in wait. And as we can see, we started off all the way back on the 29th of June. Would you believe it? It's already been over a month since we started off Season 7, and we're not through it yet, as in rounds 1 and 2 we kicked off at the roller coaster ride of road racing in the United States of America, and that was Road Atlanta. And one open pair of races we did have, Olympus Esports really announcing themselves on the stage in Season 7, making their debut, and it was Thomas Cope who really led the way ahead of teammate Patrik Thomsen as the drivers made the way on around. It was fast and furious racing, but really Olympus Esports emerging on the map. In round number 3, Olympus Esports continued the trend at the circuit despite Francorchamps in the silver class. It was home hero Jeremy Debova in the silver class who absolutely shone high and bright at his home circuit, taking the win on the 6th of July in our first endurance race round of the season. In rounds 4 and 5 we made our way back to the United States of America for the one and only Watkins Glen International in the state of New York, with the fast sweeping corners and one of the highest average lap speeds that we'll see all season there. Well, we got to see plenty of battling action, also a few nasty incidents in the run up through the first couple of corners, but nothing could take away from the fact, well, where many fell, others rose to the occasion. And indeed, it was once again Olympus Esports where they would run away with things at the front of the field, but also got to see in the silver class FR20 Sim Racing starting to emerge in terms of pace. Then we took our mid-season break, our break week, and returned for round 6 and 7 last time out. That was back on the 27th of July, so a week ago, and we continued to stay in the United States of America, but made our way to the state of Virginia for the Virginia International Raceway. And well, it needs no introduction, that circuit. We gave it one last week regardless, and what a pair of rounds we had there in the fact for the fast flying corners and the highly technical sequences of corners there in Virginia. We got to see plenty of battle in action, and it really was a day whereby the absence of Thomas Cope in the gold class due to holiday, and he's back in full fighting fit action this week. We can promise you that he's on the grid. Well, we got to see others rise, and Dan Sedgley in the Olympus Esports Titan machine really looking to close the gap. But we also saw Philipp Hammer pick up his first win of the season, the defending gold champion, double gold champion, two-time champion, looking to try and make it 3 in a row, and perhaps the momentum may now be sitting with the defending champion. But today is the 3rd of August, and therefore it's round at number 8 at the Circuito de Jerez, and here in Spain we'll be seeing our second endurance race round of the season. In a week's time we'll make our way back to the United States of America for the 4th and final time this season for the one and only Road America circuit, and then the picturesque Elkhart Lake countryside we're going to be seeing our drivers take on the Wisconsin State circuit like no other for the double header rounds 9 and 10. Well, then they make their way further north in the North American continent to Canada for the Circuit Charles Villeneuve in rounds 11 and 12. That'll be on the 17th of August, and then the Highbury Street circuit, indeed with the fact it's a road racing circuit with the walls being so close and limited runoff area, it is sometimes regarded as a street circuit as it is within the city limits of Montreal, albeit in one of the national parks located there. We'll get to see our drivers scrap it out in what is expected to be a fast and furious pair of rounds of racing action. Indeed, there could be quite a few incidents and also many drivers making contact with the War Champions. And in the penultimate pair of rounds, it's rounds 13 and 14 at the Silverstone Legacy circuit. We take a trip back in time in the United Kingdom back to 2008 in the original Silverstone layout before it was remodified into today's safer but still no less brilliant layout. We'll see our drivers there taking the fast layout of Silverstone on the 24th of August, and then we bring it all to a close around 15 to 15 in Japan at the Suzuka International Racing Course. The Grand Prix layout will be playing host to our drivers in the 3rd and final endurance race round of the season. We bring the curtain down the 31st of August. Indeed, save the date there. Suzuka at the very end of a calendar. I want to tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to name a circuit that is associated with late championship drama, it is Suzuka. But more on that close to the time. But giving you an update on our championship standings after 7 rounds of racing action, we started with the Gold Drivers' Championship. And here we can see Thomas Cope leads the way for Olympus Esports Vanguard at 104 points. 30 clear of Dan Sedgley for the sister team Olympus Esports Titan. And keep in mind that Cope's lead has been diminished somewhat given the fact he was not able to race last time out, but still there is a drop week in effect, and therefore Cope has been forced to take his drop week, and that 30-point advantage now really is the advantage he has over the field for the remainder of the season, and he'll look to try and maintain it if not extend it. But you can imagine with Sedgley hot on his heels and also Philipp Hammer only a further 5 points behind, well, the 3rd place Team Germany driver right now very eager to try and make a dent into the P2 chase and then make his way in the Hunter Cope all the way to the lead. But then we do have in P4 Patrik Thomsen only a further 2 points behind, picking up a couple of minus points for an instant last time out of Virginia International Raceway, and therefore losing some key points and dropping out of P3 after all was said and done. But Corey Lazarus now into P5 for Blackout Motorsport, and it definitely looks as though the New Zealander continuing to try and find a way to break into the top 4, but also having to steer clear of the rest of the chasing field. That's led by Igor Koz in P6 for FTR Esports on 40 points right now, continue to stay one step ahead of Paul Busby for Effect Simulations, with Samuel K. Sprout, Simon B. Bamba and Khalid Ramadan completing your top 10. And keep your eyes on the Somsport driver in P10. Ramadan really demonstrating last time out that whether he starts towards the front of the field or towards the back, he's not to be underestimated with his tenacity to cut his way through the field. But has had quite a bit of bad luck come his way over the course of the season thus far, and that P10 is not representative of where I think he deserves to be in terms of pace. He should be right up there towards the bottom end of what is the top 5, and was going to be hunting that, there's no question about it. Danny Lee in P11 continued to go from strength to strength for the privateer. He's best of the rest on 17 points, 1 clear of James Parker, with a further point ahead of Joe Newman. Next, Ryan Walker and Emil Koopmans to complete your top 15, albeit Walker ahead of Koopmans based on result countback. Then Nathan Foster is P16 for Empire Motorsport, 2 points clear of Lee Dimmer for Vixel to Aberdare, with Jack Atkinson, Mark Jones and Roxanne Marshall completing your top 20. Then outside the top 20 is Stefan Liversidge and Lucas Romano and Lee Holmes there, who are both on a single point, Romano and Holmes, but Holmes behind Romano based on result countback. We have a new debutant as of today, and that'll be Leaf Esports' Lars Witzig. He'll be starting on the grid, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on his debut. And there'll be Dean Powell and Ashley Ingham yet to score any points to their names, and Marcel Fritsch with -4 points due to post-round penalties, and therefore he'll be looking to try and convert it into positive points as soon as possible. We then come on to the Silver Class Drivers' Championship, and here we can see the complexion is rather similar. We do have a leader who is starting to break away from the field. That's in the form of Jeremy DeBover for DBI Bowman Challenge. He has an advantage of 29 points over Adam Greason. However, despite not being on the pace necessarily last time out, Jeremy DeBoer was able to find a pair of podiums which have set him up for great success going into today, and he's been able to maintain the lead. Meanwhile, it was to Adam Greason, who looked to be the driver who was on form to really dominate the performances, taking the win in the sprint race at VIL, but not being able to make it onto the podium for the feature race due to a mid-race incident, and therefore the FR20 Sim Racing driver missed a very important opportunity in order to try and reel in the championship leader. Meanwhile, in P3, it's the rivals, indeed within the team of FR20 Sim Racing, with Steve Hobbs there having better fortunes compared to Greason, and after they made it a 1-2 on the podium in the sprint race, it would be Hobbs who would take the win in the feature race and therefore narrow the gap to only 2 points in the battle for P2. A further 9 points behind is Chris Edison for UKSimRacing admin team. Another driver who's been plagued with severe bad luck over the course of the season, and he reckons he's got the pace to be inside the top 3 from what we've seen. I would happily agree with him. Then we do have Glenn Humberstone P5 for ATEC Racing, who would be 9 points behind, but 3 clear Sean Cranley Swash right now, trying to stay clear of the rest of the field and staying inside that top 5. But it's not easy when you've got 24-hour punty people's Cranley Swash behind, and he's celebrating his birthday today, and we may see him on the grid. We are waiting for confirmation whether we will see him on the grid, but if so, he's going to be charging against the elements and also celebrating his birthday, and well, what a day it is for the 6th place driver. A point behind him is Alex Hiscox with Cameron Smith P8, and Chris Rance and Sean Dobie completing your top 10, with Wayne Bassett P11, best of the rest there for FR20 Sim Racing, and on 21 points, looking to try and build some more points to get closer to his 2 teammates, so right towards the top of the standings, but in return has to be wary of the fact that he has Jeremy Story only a further 2 points behind, with 4-point gap then to Mark Oliver, followed up by Jules Bowles and Richard White to complete your top 15. It's Didi Delaney in P16 on 9 points, 3 clear of Aaron Tresler, with Paul Joseph Clist a further point behind, and Alistair Hatcher, the last driver to have a point to his name in P19, with 0 points to both Steve Lathwell and Daniel Fritz, and Craig Shaw on -9 points due to post-round penalties. He's in P22 to complete the silver standings. And then come to the Teams Championship standings, and here we can see Olympus Esports Vanguard lead the way now by a continually growing margin, and that margin all the way up to the best part there of what is, I do believe, 97, with that 93 points. Let's do the mathematics correct, and they're ahead of their sister team Olympus Esports Titan, and that goes to show how Olympus Esports are already going for gold in all categories so far. Team Germany, meanwhile, in P3 are only ahead of Blackout Motorsport based on result countback, with FTR Esports a further 25 points behind in P5, and they're trying to steer clear of Effect Simulations, with UKSimRacing admin team also 5 points off and keeping in the hunt for a top 5 finish this season. Empire Motorsport, SomSport and AI Race Summaries DCW Racing complete your top 10, with a further point behind being FR20 Sim Racing, who are best of the rest in P11. They're 4 points clear of 24-hour punty people, with Apex Missers, Fix Orbit over there, and Eclipse Racing completing your top 15. Outside the top 15, based on result countback, it's ATEC Racing, also on 6 points, much like Clicks Racing, their key rivals, with Team Wales P17 at a DBR Benma Challenge, and there's Tresler Racing and Whiskey Runners Race who complete the top 20, albeit Whiskey Runners Racing on 0 points, but ahead of Top Gear Sim Racing based on result countback, and there's ATEC, DBR and CS Sim Racing UK who complete your Team Championship standings. So going from our standings then to our circuit for today is the Circuito de Jerez Ángel Nieto, as it's known in full. Named after the Spanish motorcyclist who passed away quite recently in relative terms, this circuit located in the township of Jerez de la Frontera in the province of Cadiz in the what is the autonomous community of Andalusia in Spain. It is a circuit that doesn't get quite as much recognition on 4 wheels as it does 2 wheels, being a regular host, as we said earlier, to World Superbike Challenge Championships, but at the same time, this is a circuit that when it's raced at on 4-wheel machines, it's definitely felt with regards to its layout. As we can see from the circuit map provided by iRacing.com, thank you to them for their wonderful simulator and the circuit maps that come with it, the MotoGP layout of the circuit will be playing host to our drivers. 13 corners at its core, all of them primarily sweepers or hairpins, and that means we have a very technical circuit, and one that is very hard and fast in terms of how it hits the drivers. There's not really much of a breather around here with only 2 extended straights, and when we say they're extended, really they're quite short, with the back straight being the longest one and the only real place where you can try and make an overtaking opportunity unless you get an absolutely brilliant run out of the final hairpin onto the start finish line straight. But as our drivers make their way on around, they'll head up through towards turn number 1 and across the start finish line in a rather severe uphill gradient towards Expo 92, and as they make their way onto the brakes of the sharp right hand corner, they'll feel very quickly how off camber it is and needing to stay on a tight inside line in order to get the corner set up right. Then heading to turn number 2, a downhill braking zone which falls away, and as they sweep the way through the hairpin, they'll come down through the kink of 3, flat out up towards turn number 4, where lift is going to be important and perhaps also a downshift. Then going up towards Cito Pons at turn number 5, it's a very late apex corner which sees a massive gradient change over the course of the corner entry towards corner apex, and as the cars make their way over the apex, they'll find themselves spat out onto the back straight, and literally the car will be ejected out with off-camber nature of the corner, seeing the car want to naturally understeer and run wide. But get it right and they'll carry all the speed down towards dry sack hairpin at turn number 6, the slice corner on the circuit as they head onto the brakes, and as they make their way out of the corner where we could see some major overtaking opportunities presented, they then go up through the double left at turns 7 and 8, exiting Aspar corner, it's in a quick switch to a double right at turns 9 and 10, and Giornito and Paliqui corner, will they make their way through the double right of Alex Graville and Ferrari, a very fast and ferocious double right sweeping section, while making their way up towards Lorenzo corner at turn number 13, named after the infamous motorcyclist in recent years of MotoGP, and as they exit the hairpin, it's a run onto the start finish straight once again to complete a lap and do it all over again. Well, just before we go racing, let's give you a reminder of the rules once again for the endurance race round. And as we can see here, qualifying wise, it's an open qualifying format tonight. That means all our drivers will be on circuit for a grand total of 30 minutes to set their best possible time. During this 30 minutes, drivers must not reset to the pits outside of the pit lane. In doing so, they'll end their qualifying session prematurely and the currently set lap will have to stand. Race-wise, there shall be a single 45-minute endurance race, with the race commencing via a standing start as is the tradition of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup, and the endurance race grid shall be set based on results of qualifying. That is a given. There'll be no mandatory pit stop requirements in the endurance race. So if we see a driver come into the pits, it's for one of two reasons. Either they picked up a drive-through penalty for accumulated 24 or more instant points, or alternatively, they've got damage on the car and they need to get it repaired, but there's no fast repairs available. And points awarded for the endurance race shall be a combination of the traditional sprint and feature points format, so therefore this round is not worth more or less compared to the double pair of rounds that we typically see over the course of the calendar. But that's all rules and regulation and everything in between. As we make our way back to live pictures, here is our schedule for today, ladies and gentlemen. At times in British summertime, that's BST or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. And as we can see, going underway very shortly is our qualifying session, 30 minutes in duration. I believe we've just transitioned over to it, so our drivers will be making their way out the pit lane very shortly, and we look forward to seeing who ends up on pole. And then we'll make our way to the grid at 8:30 this evening for a 45-minute endurance race, albeit I believe there's a 5-minute breather between qualifying and the race. But once we're good to go, it's going to be intense, it's going to be tight, and we'll look forward to seeing how our drivers manage their cars over the 45 minutes. It's definitely going to be an ultimate test of stamina and endurance on the car. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way in to the qualifying session, and as all drivers begin to make their way out of the pit lane, well, I can tell you one thing, it's going to become a very crowded circuit very quickly, given the fact that we do have a grand total of what I believe is approximately 30 drivers in the 10th state, if not some more. And as our drivers do start to make their way out of the pits, we look to Lee Deemer here as he comes on through what is turn number 2 and into 3. It is an absolutely brilliant day for sunshine here in Spain, and as we give you an update with regards to the weather conditions going into this race, you see on the right hand side of your screen there, we do have an ambient temperature of 32 degrees centigrade and an absolutely scorching track temperature currently of 50 degrees centigrade. And we do see that it says it's partly cloudy, but look at my control booth and above, I can tell you one thing, if there is cloud around, it's very minor. This circuit is going to get sensationally hot, and with that, it's going to have a huge effect, not just on the race in terms of tyre degradation, tyre preservation, where even the smallest of lockups and slides can easily overheat the tyre, but also in qualifying here, because it really will make it difficult to push the car to its utmost in order to get the ideal qualifying time. But of course, that's the contrast, and the fact you do want to have your fastest possible lap going into qualifying in order to be able to get yourself as high as possible up the grid. But as we say hello there to Medmo in the YouTube chat, says Hazard made it just in time and demands to hear happy birthday singing in respect to Sean at Cruddy Swash. Well, he's not currently on the grid, unfortunately, otherwise I would love to have done a little bit of a sing-along there, particularly if he were to finish on the podium with the silver class. But I hope he is having a happy birthday all the same, and well, sure, we look forward to seeing you back on the grid in the next pair of rounds. But as our drivers do make the way on around here, what does it take to get a good qualifying lap of the Jerez circuit, you may be asking? Well, the thing about this circuit is, as we said earlier, it's a very technical circuit. There's no real room for breathing around here in terms of respite between the corners. So that means essentially you need to have everything hooked up. You need a setup on the car that enables you to attack the corners and carry as much speed from apex to apex. Given the fact there's only 2 straights around here, you haven't really got an opportunity to demonstrate straight line speed. In the fact, if the driver does set up the car for straight line speed by taking a bit of rear wing off, what they gain on that straight, they will lose out more in the corners by comparison. So therefore, around here, a lot of downforce on the car is going to go well, but also having the confidence, knowing how wide the car is and how much width you can take from corner to corner is going to be critical, because every extra millimetre that you can give yourself space to turn into a given apex, particularly on the double left into double right section at turns 7 through to 10, that can be worth a whole couple of attempts come the end of the lap. But as we do look to it, Sean Doby making his way on through in towards turns number 11 and 12 now, coming through the double right here, where this is where the MotoGP circuit deviates from the standard GT or Grand Prix layout, in the fact we would see our drivers go into a chicane there, albeit we're not going to be using the chicane today. And Doby makes his way through into the final corner and gets himself set up for his first flying lap of the session, and we jump on board here with the UKSimRacing driver as he takes us around for a flying lap on the Jerez circuit. Making his way up towards turn number 1, and then onto the brakes here, braking the 100-metre mark, coming down the gears gradually to second gear. Nice late apex, then gets it nice and tight as he now lets the car run out wide and into the braking zone for turn number 2. drop in from third to second, take plenty of apex curb, let the car get rotating on the curb, and now starts to feather in the throttle as he goes over the curb at turn number 3. Little bit of wobble there as he drops on the curb, back onto the tarmac, and then through turn number 4, a lift off the throttle to let the car rotate through, while heading up towards turn number 5. He'll bring the car as far left as possible onto the brakes, about 125 metres from the entry point to the apex, down from into third gear, and as he makes his way through the right-hander, plenty of road width being used there, absolutely spot on. That's pinpoint position for Dobie as he now makes his way down towards turn number 6. Heading onto the brakes here, he'll be braking about 120 metres from the corner apex all the way down to second gear, down to first in fact in the apex. He wants the extra rotation and retardation under engine braking, and as he makes his way now at 6 into 7, double left coming up here, flat out through turn number 7, albeit a little lift there, not quite full confidence yet, still trying to get some tyre temperature, and then dropping down to third gear for turn 8, which is a very deceptive corner here. In fact, you can see how much whip there is to the circuit, but the problem is you need to get the car back over to left for turn number 9, so not everyone's going to use all that circuit whip. Dobie doesn't as he comes through 9 and up towards 10, staying in second gear here, almost hitting the rev limiter, but as he comes through the right-hander, 9, when he's got the tyres with a bit more temperature, he can be a bit more aggressive there. Now heading to turns 11 and 12, the double right here as he makes way through, lifting in fourth gear there, through turn number 11, flat out through turn number 12, got to keep the throttle down here to pin the rear of the car down onto the tarmac, as he breaks his way into turn number 13, breaking the 100 metre ball, goes a bit deep of the dirty FR20 sim racing machine in front, perhaps just unsettling the front, but he does bring it back together to hit a nice late apex, and then towards the timing here, and for Dobie, what's it going to be for his first lap on the board, where it is going to be for the Clicks Racing driver. It's going to be a 145.439, that puts him P3 in the silver class thus far, P12, there's going to be plenty more lap time out there, that is 3.2 seconds off of the provisional pole lap overall as set by Danny Lee, but immediately Patrik Thomsen goes even faster. We're 41.810, and I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, in the build-up to tonight, we were hearing rumours that 1 minute 40s were possible, and I do believe that Olympus Esports really targeting the 140s if they can get into them, albeit the track was a bit cooler back then compared to how it is now, so therefore these warmer temperatures may cause some of those lap times to erode away, and the bar may not be as high, but Thomsen draws to a 41.810, which is 200s faster than Lee, and as we've got plenty of drivers still to get a time on the board, well, we do look to our debutant for today. It's Leaf Esports' Lars Witzig, as we can see him here making his way on through. I do believe that being the switchback combination going into coming into out turn number 4 and into turn number 5, and as he makes his way through the right hand there in the absolutely splendorous green machine, and well, anybody getting some recall there to perhaps the colourful colours of the Benetton F1 machine, which dated into the early 90s. Indeed, that's the sort of shade of green I'm thinking of when I see this car here on our screens right now in the number 62, and we wish him all the best of luck. I've heard he's come into this one feeling confident, but also excited to get racing with everyone. He's put quite a bit of practice in to the racing at Jerez, and well, we look forward to seeing how that practice pays dividends to him as he makes his way around there through turn number 8 and into 9. But as he comes on around, meanwhile, we do say hello there to Nathan Scott, who says, Dodge having to show us the pipes. Indeed, I did indeed, Nathan. And we also say hello there to Craig Tillerston, who says, good luck to the FR20 Sim Racing boys. Hope you have as much fun as I did last night for FR20 Sim Racing Yellow in the GT3s. Indeed, racing in another league, which I have the pleasure of covering, with Craig Tillerston doing very well in the GT3 around here, and right now hoping that his teammates can have similar luck as they make the way around in the Porsche Cup 992 machine. But as we do look to Chris Rance here, making his way on around, currently P4 in the silver class, and keeping in mind, of course, we do have a lot of time in this qualifying session, and time not being of the essence today, you would think, given the fact that we have those 8-minute qualifying sessions in the sprint and feature round pairing format, where the drivers literally do have only 8 minutes, and that's it. Right now, they can really evolve into this qualifying session, and that's the important thing around here as well. You really do need to build yourself up to that ideal lap. Nailing the lap immediately out of the box is not always going to be possible, although I say that, and Thomas Cope right now immediately strikes pole position over 41.427 on only his second flying lap, and that is 1/10 faster than Philipp Hammer. But the point being around here, these laps are continuing to grow. Marbles are being laid down, the circuit is gradually gripping up, but it's also getting hotter, the circuit, and well, it's a bit of a contrast there. As we find the circuit does evolve, it does become a little bit grippier, but at the same time, the amount of temperature going on through means that tyres are going to feel very skittish in terms of the grip available lap after lap. when you push, and Hammer P2 currently. So it does look as though right now Hammer is trying to close the gap then, trying to take that pole position as soon as possible, and well, they are in a similar place on the circuit right now, as we do see Hammer making his way down towards turn number 6. And we talked about last time, albeit with the absence of Cope, so therefore we are seeing Hammer and Cope back together on the circuit now after the mid-season break. But we talked about the fact that there was a trend in Season 6 whereby Hammer had a very difficult first half of the season. He wasn't out of the championship, but it was definitely looking as though the title defence was on the line at certain points. And in the second half of the season, he just absolutely nailed it round after round, lap after lap. It seemed as though we saw the Hammer of Season 5 come back. And again, we saw that Virginia International Raceway. We've seen a different kind of driver. And I think Hammer really has used the first 5 rounds of this season just to get into the swing, see who he's competing against, and see where the pace sits and also where his main rivals are. And now, going into the effective second half of the season after the mid-season break, he's now already coming alive, and we're seeing that in the fact the lap times he's putting in are really representative of what we've seen previously, as he almost misses his pit entry there and almost overshoots the braking zone. But as he makes his way into the pit lane, well, we've had one third of this qualifying session complete. And we do look from one of our leading gold drivers to our leading silver driver in the Silver Class Championship, and also in terms of qualifying right now, Jeremy Debova, and he is 1.5 seconds off the overall pole. He's in P12, but the key point here, as we do update your class standings there, we show you the classes as they would line up if they were segregated on the grid. This gives you an idea of the relative pace between class drivers. We can see at Debova right now 6/10, if not a little bit more, clear of the next silver driver, Alex Hiscox, who P2 in the silver class grid. He'll be starting P16 versus Jeremy Debova P12 in the overall grid if the qualifying session was to finish now. And Debova going on to another flying lap very short. He's on an out lap currently as he makes his way through the left-hander, and as he does, coming through Lorenzo corner at turn number 13 and then up the hill towards turn number 1. Well, Debova here will think as though he can raise the bar a bit further, and if he can qualify inside the top 10, that would be a huge achievement, and it would make him feel very comfortable for the remainder of the day, particularly if none of the other silver class drivers can get anywhere near as close, given the fact Hiscox will be starting on the 8th row currently, Debova will be starting on the 6th row. If he can add one more row into that gap, it gives him a lot of breathing room to play with over the 45 minutes of racing, and that is the thing I think a lot of drivers are going to have on their mind here, is the 45-minute race, for the simple reason we know that the tyres on these Porsche Cup cars do not last more than 20 minutes when they're pushed, and what that means is essentially you've got 45 minutes of racing where our drivers are not even going to have the tyres to really last them in terms of driving aggressively or quickly for half the race. So therefore a lot of time management's going to go on, and we could see some drivers absolutely spring at the start of the race, only to then be reeled in the final 15 to 20 minutes. And speaking of springing his way up the order, well, Chris Edison right now, the UKSimRacing Adamant team driver, goes provisional silver pole on a 42.741, 2.5 tenths faster than Jeremy Debova's lap. But again, of course, we've got plenty of time to come here, it would seem. And well, Edison right now puts himself P10 on the overall grid, and that's what we're saying about earlier in terms of anybody can get themselves in the silver class inside that overall top 10. I think they're going to be very safe going into lap number 1. Presuming there's no incident amongst the gold drivers in front of them. You can never tell, of course. That's what happens in all motorsport, not just in the UK Sim Racing League. But as he makes his way on down the hill, keeping it all clean as he makes his way in towards turn number 6. As he heads on down and in towards the braking zone. Meanwhile, we do look to some drivers who yet to get a lap time on the board, including FR20 Sim Racing's Adam Grieveson, who are right now very eager to try and arrest the difficulties of last time out. And well, as he makes his way on through turn 17 into 8, right now the FR20 Sim Racing driver eager to try and get a lap time that's representative of where he wants to be. And of course, he wants to be, as a minimum, ahead of Debova. Ideally, he wants to be ahead of Edison. He wants to take the silver class pole position. But the problem is here, where it's going to be a rock and a hard place. Now I would say taking on the hard place will be Debova as a minimum, and as he makes his way on through turn at number 10 and up towards 11, he's also got the distant toe there of one of his teammates. I believe that may be Hobbs, unless we're mistaken. I think it is Stephen Hobbs just in front of him, and we can confirm it is. Oh goodness me, he loses the rear of the car there, does Grieveson, and just turning through turn number 12, and the car letting go on the rear axle. And as he now tries to get the car restored, he's going to reverse, but this is going to lead to a yellow flag, which everyone coming on through will have to respect. But meanwhile, from one silver driver's had it go wrong to what is a gold driver who is gradually finding some pace. Khalid Ramadan for Somsport right now making his way on through turn number 2 and into 3. He's P17. I think he'll feel as though there needs to be a lot more time there, but he's got the time to play with. He doesn't need to do this too quickly in terms of getting the lap on the board. And again, he's never one you can underestimate in the fact, or count out I should say, and to count him out early is to underestimate him in the fact the number 80 driver, as we saw at Virginia International Raceway, he had an absolutely dismal sprint race, but meanwhile in the feature race he came all the way through the back of the field, much like Danny Lee, the two of them of course being involved in a bit of contact together in the sprint of Virginia, only to then come charging through the order and make the way all the way up towards what was the top 10 places, and that long tail battle to be inside the top 5 right at the end of the gold class in the feature race. And Will Ramadan was one of the major belligerents in there who did successfully pull it off in the end and finish inside the top 5 if my memory serves me correctly. But right now looking to here today as he makes his way up between turns 8 and 9, you can see that direction change, the way the car sweeping from side to side. And that's one of the wonderful things about the Porsche 992 and really the demonstration of Porsche manufacturing at its finest here, when these cars are made for handling, made for direction change, the king of direction change you could argue, with the engine being based over the rear axle, and it's really a rear engine rear wheel drive car rather than what we typically classify as a mid-engine rear wheel drive, and therefore all that weight swinging around on the back as he goes a bit too wide there does Ramadan out of 12, so it will be an invalidated lap, but he's still got plenty more laps in the tank in terms of the time available to him. But meanwhile, as we do look to James Parker, another double gold champion for DCW Racing with iRacing, and as he makes his way on through turn number 3 and into 4, as he comes through the left hand. And if you're ever wondering what the ARS logo on the side of the car stands for, that stands for iRacing, as he makes his way up towards turn number 5 here. And Will Parker, we haven't seen quite up there in terms of pace so far this season, but definitely looking as though it's a different tune he's singing to today as he makes his way on down towards turn number 6. As he comes up charging on down towards the braking zone, looking very confident here to be trying to qualify inside the top 5. He is only currently 1.3 tenths of Corey Lazarus' P5 time, albeit Lazarus on an outlap right now, and so is Daniel Lee. And you see Danny Lee there right behind, and I always call him Daniel. I should refer to him as Danny, as I think he does prefer the more informal version of his name as he makes his way through turn number 8 into 9. But right now the red machine making its way all around here, the red privateer, and as he comes on through, if he does score a couple of podiums, well, you never know, we might be starting to refer to him as the Red Baron of the Porsche Cup as he comes on around here and up towards turn number 11. But looking at back to Parker, well, it has been a bit of a slow start to the season, but definitely now starting to find his form and momentum as he heads in towards the braking zone for turn 13. And as he heads on, he angles the lock-up for a car just in front. I believe it's a lock-up for the car of what is Stephen Lathwell. But as we do see what is here, the machine of Parker heading towards the timeline. What's going to be for James Parker this time around? He does improve in subsectors 1 and 4, and he improves to 41.941. It's good enough to put him P5, and it puts him half a tenth ahead of Corey Lazarus and puts him a tenth off of Danny Lee's time in P4, with Patrik Thomsen and then only a further 200 at start of the road. So it's looking very close for the second row of the grid. But Cope and Hammer in their battle for pole position really are now starting to take the front row of the grid and make it their own, with only a tenth between the two of them, and they are effectively almost 3 tenths clear of the rest of the field as a minimum. But meanwhile, as we do look from one gold driver who's finished lap and has gone on to another, to a gold driver who's made his way towards the end of the current lap, here is the Fixed Auto Aberdare driver from Wales, Lee Deemer, as he heads out to turn number 13. And as he makes his way towards the timeline, heading over to the left-hand side here, Deemer did improve in subsector 1, does not improve elsewhere on the lap. He is currently a whole 3 seconds off of the gold pole in the overall pole time set by Cope, and Deemer not improving that time around, so still plenty of time to find. And well, here Deemer may be thinking more about the race rather than qualifying, but as he makes his way on through turn number 2 and down in towards 3, or as he rolls the car off and in towards turn number 4. Meanwhile, we do look at some drivers who've yet to get a lap time on the board, including Wes Paul Joseph Clist as he makes his way into the pit lane. And well, we've yet to see go out on circuit Joe Newman. Also, I believe Mark Oliver, who's at pit exit right now and just sat at the end of the pit exit. Perhaps he's trying to fix an issue with the car. When we say pit exit, I think he's rolled out his pit box and they've taken the car back. And Lucas Romano has yet to go out there and put a lap on as well. So we've got 5 drivers looking for it, and also DDD Belaming. So a bit of a surprise here. So we have 28 drivers who are registered time, 5 without, out of our grand total of 33 drivers in attendance. So therefore it does look as though here some drivers might be starting well out of position. But meanwhile, Cameron Smith here, right now P10 in the silver class, as we do bring those class standings once again on the left-hand side of your screen as he makes his way on through turn number 5 and down towards 6. And well, Cameron Smith right now a bit off the pace of Sean Dobie in the battle for P9 in the silver class in this qualifying session. It is the best part of 8 tenths between the two of them, but in return he is 7 tenths clear of Craig Schill. So therefore it does look as though towards the bottom end of the silver class we do have a few drivers who are still trying to find their pace and find their times at the Jerez circuit, whereas others are now starting to group together. And speaking of that grouping together, well, here is Jeremy DeBova, the DBR Bowman Challenge driver, and we can see right now his provisional silver pole on a 42.720, and he is only ahead of Chris Eddersford by 200ths. That's how close it is, as both drivers continue to battle for that silver pole position, and then Chris Rance is a further 7 tenths off. So again, much like in the gold class, we've got a top 2 in the silver class that really are trying to make that pole shootout their own. And as we see DeBova making his way through turn 11 into 12, will he be able to improve this time around, or will he find as the car goes off the road? That's Cameron Smith taking a run into the gravel, and we'll get it very wrong there indeed. But meanwhile, we're going to see as Philipp Hammer's coming to the pit lane after setting a 41.399 to take provisional gold pole and overall pole. Well, it's going to be DeBova who crosses the line. Is it an improvement here from what his lap time was previously at 42.720? No, it's not. He's going to have to go again. But meanwhile, as he comes towards another lap, we look to a driver coming towards the end of a lap who we're going to jump on board with in the gold class, and it will be Ryan Walker very shortly. In fact, I think they're having to back the car slightly coming out of the final corner, but he does get a good run, and as he makes his way up towards turn number 1, we jump aboard and we'll take you through the lap. He's making his way into the braking zone here, using plenty of the left-hand curve to widen the corner. Got to be careful to use too much, but third gear interesting on the apex there. Just trying to go for a high gear to get the throttle down more aggressively on exit. Then drops into second for turn number 2. Takes plenty of apex curve, makes his way out. He's going to upshift the third right at the top of the RPM range. Up into fourth here, now turning into turn number 4. Slight lift there, a very small lift, about 70% roll, but carries a bit too much speed. The car runs wide. It will be an invalidated lap for Walker. He's going to back it off immediately here as he now gets himself set for another lap. Unfortunate for the satellite racing driver, but just carrying a bit too much speed there. Really trying to go for gold, but in the end it was going for broke instead as he makes his way down towards turn number 6. But as he does, something will try and catch him a little bit later on. We do look instead now into a driver making the way on around and looking to get a new representative lap on the board. I do believe we have none other than what is Philipp Hammer making his way down towards what is turn number 6 here, and right now provisional gold pole sitter only by 300ths over Kobe. He is on an outlap, his Hammer, as he gets himself set, but we look from him briefly to Jeremy DeBova in the silver class, who makes his way out the final corner, and he's gone purple in subsector 3 for the silver class. What's this going to be? I think this could be an even fast lap for silver pole for a 42.720. It's not quite enough. He practically matches the lap. So DeBova right now has got more time out there, but he's just trying to find it as he heads down towards turn number 2. But then we do go back to Philipp Hammer as he gradually winds himself up to a new lap. He's on an out lap at the moment, and we will be jumping on board with the Team Germany driver as he heads into the final corner to take you through a lap in the gold class. We did one earlier, of course, with what was our Clicks Racing driver, Sean Dobie, in the silver class. And as Hammer makes his way down, current pole sitter heading into the corner, opens the corner up as much as possible here. Well, I think that might be a bit of an invalidation, but he's going to open it up as much as he can. I think he is allowed to get away with that, or is he? Well, he gets on the power, heads his way up towards turn number 1, and in fact, it will be just a wind up to the next lap. So Hammer not deciding to go for a full attack lap here, so it won't be a ride on board with him. So I think that might have been to let a driver on through the car behind, and in fact, he makes his way into the pit lane. Well, in fact, does he make his way into the pit lane? No, he doesn't. He just brings himself off the racing line. We thought he was coming to a standstill there, and he tucks in behind Lars Witzig. As right now, we do see the Leaf Esports driver coming down through turn number 3. They're both trying to negotiate where they want to be on circuit relative to one another. As we do bring you back to the overall standings on the left-hand side of your screen, and we'll Paul Joseph Cliffs make his way on an outlap. Meanwhile, getting a bit wrong there in the rear of your picture. I believe that is the car of what is. I do believe that's Alex Hiscox getting it slightly wrong and sliding sideways coming out of turn number 4. Bit too much speed there, and that's going to be some very heavily overheated tyres, and also with that it could be a flat spot or two, particularly on the rear tyres. He now makes his way down towards turn number 6, and Hiscox currently P5 in the silver class, P21 overall, and will not run out of time per se, but he is right now running out of road in this lap, and he'll be looking towards the next lap in order to be able to do a little bit better and potentially move himself inside the top 20, given the fact he is only half a tenth of Chris Rance's P20 time, and will then battling for P4 in the silver class. But as we do see, Hiscox wind his way on through turn number 8 and into 9. Behind him, he's got James Parker right now, and James Parker still inside the top 10 of the gold class. P6, he has been stepped ahead by Vertig, as meanwhile we do look to Parker as he exits turn at number 9 and into 10. And I do agree with you there, Medbo. Cook tyres for Alex Hiscox, and I think he's going to definitely be thinking about either coming into the pits and getting a quick tyre change on the board. Alternatively, he's going to let the tyres cool down, and if he needs to, spend another lap cooling them down, getting himself fully psyched up to then go full attack for what will be the final 5 minutes of this qualifying session. As Parker makes his way through turn number 13 through Lorenzo Corner. He's improved. He's on a personal best in subsector 1 and subsector 3. Subsector 2 wasn't anything to scream home about, but as he crossed the timing line, subsector 4 was not a huge improvement, but it is an improvement overall on the lap, and it puts him P3. And Parker right now only 400ths of a Hammer's pole time, 100th of a Thomas Coates P2 lap. So right now it is getting very close at the top end of the field here, and could we see Parker on the front row for the first time this season? Well, would you imagine? I think right now it would be a dream to see the two gold champions, both the two-time gold champions, say that in a hurry multiple times over, I dare you. But seeing a Hammer and Parker on the front row, I think many of you will be wishing that right now. But I can tell you one thing, the leader of the gold championship, Coat, will not be hoping that happens, and instead he'll be hoping that he can find a way to come back as he makes his way through turn number 8 and into 9. And as he does so, we bring you an update on what is the weather conditions around here. And as we can see, the weather right now, well, the ambient temperatures dropped slightly by degrees centigrade, as has the track temperatures. We are moving towards the evening now in Spain, but still it's a very hot circuit, 49 degrees centigrade track temperature in particular, and that is going to be absolutely abysmal for the tyres of these cars. But as we then do look to the dashboard here for what will be the lap going in for Thomas Cope, he's made his way onto a flying lap, and well, let's jump on board here and take you through it. Made his way out to the final corner and up towards turn number 1. He brings the car over to the left hand side very gradually here in 5th gear, and in fact hits the rev limiter there. And I think Cope may in fact have already scuppered this lap before he's even gone on the charge. We'll follow it through to the end as he makes his way out to out of 1 and into 2. And as he comes down to 2nd gear here, I think he's going to try and redeem the rest of the lap as he goes through turn number 3. And coming on through there, flat out all the way out towards 4. Lift off the throttle, turning nice and early, use plenty of apex curve to drag the car around. And up towards turn number 5. And then onto the brakes here. It is a very early run to the brakes here for Cope, so this is going to be an aborted lap, and I think we will have to wait and see if he's able to put something together on the next lap. But hitting the rev limiter there before he made his way into turn number 1 in 5th gear, and just did not quite make that work at all. And well, now for Cope, it is definitely a missed opportunity, and one that he will not want to miss again given the time remaining. We're looking outside the overall top 10. P11 best of the rest right now overall is this man, as he misses his apex there. In fact, misses the exit curve. It is apex misses Emil Koopmans as the Dutchman makes his way into turn number 9. And as he makes one through, he's on an outlap, albeit in fact that's turn 4 into 5. We should correct ourselves there as he comes on down in towards the brakes over turn number 6 and doing a bit of side to side weaving there just to get some of the dirt off the tyres as he heads on down. And of course, when you run wide in these Porsche Cup cars, it does take a couple of corners to get the tyres cleaned up and get them back in the zone where you want to really push them once again. Not a comfortable place to be, but as he heads on through turn number 7 and into 8. Right now, time starting to come towards a close on this qualifying session. 3.5 minutes on the clock, plus overtime for drivers who are on a lap when we can see the clock strike 30 minutes. Car off the road there, pointing the wrong way. That's by the FR20 Sim Racing machines. I do believe that may be the car of Wayne Basson who has got it wrong. And as we do see, Wes Coombs made his way up through turn at number 10 up towards 11. The Empire Motorsport car there of Joe Newman stepping aside. That's currently P18 overall. And Newman being one of the lowest placed gold drivers at this time, albeit only half a tenth of Team Germany's Marcel Fridge, as it's getting very spicy in the rear of the picture there, and I believe that might have been a little bit stepping over between, well, not Corey Lazarus, but I believe that was Samuel Sproul getting into a little bit of a nip and tuck with another car as they made their way in towards turn 13. Here is Corey Lazarus by comparison, but definitely everyone trying to find some space out of the circuit as they make their way on through. And as we do now only have 3 minutes left on the clock, well, it is going to be the onus on Cope here to try and improve on another lap. as this time he is going for it. He has just set a purple sector 1, we should point out. So the run through turn 1 through to 4 has been the fastest anybody's achieved so far. And as he makes his way in towards turn number 8 here, well, the update with regards to sector 2 is that Cope has set a personal best in sector 2. He's making his way towards the end of sector 3. Now going through turn number 9, the sector line coming up just in the exit this quarter before turn 10, where the blue stripe is in the runoff area there. And it's not an imprint in sector 3, but this could be close. A pole here as he makes his way into turns 11 and 12, going on through the double right he goes a bit wide there. Will that be an invalidation to the lap? I think it may be, as Cope they're coming to a slowdown off of the racing line, and well, letting it go. He's going to go for one more lap here, but that's frustrating. Just the slightest deviation outside the track limits, and as soon as he does, it's going to be to the lap being invalidated. But Cope right now knowing that it was a lap that could have been enough for pole, and he's going to have to go for it again as he makes his way onto one final lap here. Does the Olympus Esports driver, our gold championship leader, going into tonight? And will Philipp Hammer meanwhile making his way on around here? He'll have one more lap available to him if he's got the fuel to do so. Meanwhile, in the silver class battle for pole, we can tell that Jeremy DeBoer is still holding on to that position by what is only 200ths over Chris Edison, who's in the pit lane. So Edison, I think, has given that pole position to DeBoer in terms of saying he's not got anything left in the tank. But meanwhile, as we do see Hammer making his way on around, DeBoer feels like he's got it all done. Joe Newman jumps up to P9 there on a 42.286. But as Hammer makes his way through the final corner, he's gone personal best in subsector 1. He's gone fastest of everybody in subsector 3. He heads towards the timing line here. And what's it going to be for the number 60 driver? Can he go even faster as he crosses the line? He does. It's a 41.311. He improves by 800ths. That puts him a 10th and a bit clear of Cope. Meanwhile, Cope right now will be trying to strike back here. He's going to be very close towards the end of the 30-minute mark, but we do believe overtime rules are in effect here, whereby they can finish the lap that they're currently on, but we'll have to wait and see as Cope makes his way into turn number 9. He has got a bit of traffic in front of him. It's the other Team Germany car, Marcel Fritsch, just in front as they make their way through turn number 10. This may help Cope, however, if he gets close enough out the final corner, it may give him a little bit of sprint to the line, but as he heads through turn number 11, Cope coming on through the right hand here, using all the speed. The camera angle deceptively slow there in terms of how it made the car look, but as he makes way in, it's going to be a return to the pits here for Cope, and well, that will be it, ladies and gentlemen, in the battle for pole position here in the gold class. We believe in the Hammer will take it by a 10th in the end. Parker's on an outlap, so he's not eligible to try and dethrone Cope or Hammer from that front row of the grid. But what about Patrik Thomsen, I hear you ask, as he makes his way on around? Well, this looks to be a cool down lap here for Thomsen, so that is his qualifying session done and dusted. Meanwhile, as we said earlier in the silver class, it will be Jeremy DeBoer who is going to take silver pole position here, with only Alex Hiscox, the other silver driver, out on circuit at the moment. Ryan Walker goes P12 on a 42.454, and we can see there between what is Joe Newman all the way back to Koopmans in P13, so P9 and P13 only separated by 3/10 of fuel. That's how close it is in the battle to be inside the top 10 of the gold class and overall. But definitely this has been a qualifying session where we have seen a turn in momentum today, and the key one being here, Philipp Hammer taking pole ahead of Cope by a 10th in the end, and we have to wonder what Cope would have had if that lap had not seen that run wide out of turn number 11. But still, the Team Germany driver has got the job done in qualifying, and now he needs to turn that into the race and turn that pole into a victory, and he'll start to really chisel away at the advantage that Cope has built up in the championship thus far. But meanwhile, it's also a great job done by a deep elbow challenge for Jeremy DeBoer here. We started P15 on the grid. He's got one place between himself and Chris Edison, but Khalid Ramadan started P16. As Nathan Foster goes P9, he manages to jump ahead of Joe Newman. So it is the Empire Motorsport drivers who occupy the 5th row of the grid together, but it is going to be Foster who gets the upper hand in that qualifying battle between the two teammates. And whereas anybody else on the lap, I believe everyone now has concluded their laps, but it has been a qualifying session to remember. And well, now we look forward to seeing how this will translate into the race. And the fact, I suspect, how this field is going to start is not how it's necessarily going to finish, albeit overtaking around here can be quite challenging, but at the same time as well, we have to keep in mind that when battles do start, they will be running from corner to corner, and they will lead to some absolute thrilling moments, as we see Corey Lazarus here starting P7 on the grid. He'll be pleased with that. He is normally associated with starting in the midpoint of the top 10, if not just at the bottom end of the top 5. And right now the Blackout Motorsport driver will know he's got quite a bit of work to do ahead of him. But if anybody goes stronger in the races compared to qualifying, he is one of them. In the fact we do normally see his pace really come alive in the late stages of the longer races, and endurance races do seem to be his thing as he makes his way down towards turn at number 13 for the pit entry. That's qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and now we do have the 5-minute warm-up, or the breather if you will, before we make our way into the race, and albeit via the grid. So before we make our way to the grid, we'd just like to take a moment to say that if you have been enjoying the racing so far over the course of the season, and if you've ever wondered how you can support UKSimRacing beyond just subscribing to the channel and giving this broadcast a like, did you know there's a quick way to do so via our affiliates? For UKSimRacing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Swelling Meta Sim Race Coaching, Race Anywhere and Demon Tweaks. And you can find out all about this by firstly heading to our official website, and that is at uksimracing.co.uk. If you head there today, the website will look like this, and you can see in the top right corner of it there is a link to our Discord. Now if you click on that button, it's going to be beneficial for you for 2 reasons. Firstly, if you ever want to be on the grid for an official UK Sim Racing community event, whether it's a league or a one-off special race, you need to be part of the Discord as per the rules and regulations for the safety briefings and the driver briefings. But also secondly, and perhaps more importantly for today, in the fact that on our Discord we do have a section which is dedicated to discount codes which are only available from our affiliates at our Discord. And if you use one of those codes as part of a purchase from one of our affiliates, it's a win for you for the simple reason that you get a discount on your purchase, and it's a win for the whole of the UK Sim Racing community, because every penny we make from an affiliate purchase, as we do get a kickback from affiliate purchases, will not go into the pockets of UK Sim Racing in terms of the admins and the organisers, because we're a non-profit organisation. In fact, every penny gets invested back into the community in order to fund future series, including the Porsche Cup, the GT3 League, and plenty more we've got planned for 2023 and onwards. So do remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UK Sim Racing, and we'll have to wait and see whether a pole position app can go a long way for our drivers in their respective classes. But as we do still have this warm-up in effect, we've got 3 minutes left on the timer, and everybody get themselves set right now. And you may be wondering at this point, okay, so what changes between qualifying and also the race? Well, one of the biggest things for our drivers is the setup they'll be using. Now in qualifying, our drivers will naturally want to go with a setup on the car that's a lot more aggressive, in the fact they'll have very little fuel in the car, particularly on the lap where they try to go for that ultimate lap time. But also on top of that, they'll most likely have a brake bias which is a little bit more rear bias in terms of it opens up the rear of the car under braking. On top of that as well, they may have anti-roll bars set up in a manner whereby we do see the rear of the car and also the front of the car much more aggressive turning and also mid-apex through the corner exit. And whereas now they look for a bit more of a stable car, but also you have to keep in mind that the fuel tank of these Porsche 992 machines is based in the front, it's not based in the rear, and that is why you typify things of Porsche racing machinery in what is the four-wheel category, in the fact they do have the fuel tank in a different position compared to your traditional expectation of it being in the back of the car. And that means that when we have a lot of fuel in these cars, they behave very differently from when they have very little fuel in the car. So therefore our drivers will be looking to make adjustments on their setup in order to effectively get the most out of the car over the entirety of the race. We might see a little bit of rear wing added to the car or taken off the car, depending on the driver's preference, but it'll be all that and more now as they'll set the cars up for success over 45 minutes of racing, and well, we're not too far away from it. But speaking of being far away, Didi Blamey will be quite far away from the front of the silver class grid in the DBR Bowman Challenge machine, as the Belgian having a difficult qualifying session as we see him making his way on through here, turning number 8 into 9. As he clears the left hand and goes into the right-hander, well, he'll be looking to try and make as much pace as possible up through the field. The same for Lucas Romano, the DBR driver in the gold class, not able to get the car on to the qualifying session, albeit if it was in the late stages, and we didn't really see too much of him in qualifying. And the number 39 driver 9, he's got his work cut out from the back of the field. But then again, some drivers that start through the back, you never know how they can cover through the field. But if we do have a major incident on the opening lap, or in the first couple of laps have some significant incidents, they may find themselves very quickly promoted up the order. But we're not wishing that would happen, but it does happen every so often, and that's something that'll be on the minds of our drivers as everybody gets set here and ready to go. Well, I don't know about you guys and girls, but I can tell you one thing, I'm absolutely itching to see how this all plays out in practice now, as all our drivers get themselves set to go racing, ladies and gentlemen, and to see this set here in the province of Cadiz in Spain, in the fact that Circuito de Jerez definitely has set us up for an enticing prospect. It's going to be Hammer and Cope in the charge towards turn number 1, and meanwhile in the silver class it is going to be Jeremy DeBoer who looks to fend off a resurgent Chris Eddersford, and will Eddersford looking to try and notch up what is his first win of the season, but will DeBoer be able to keep him away? We are not too far away from finding out all that and more, and we'll place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know in the YouTube chat who you're cheering on, who you're expecting to take the respective class wins. And we do need to apologise earlier for mistaking Ben Peterson for Samuel Sproul in the qualifying session. We talked about one of the Blackout Motorsport cars being involved in a little bit of an incident. We thought it was Sproul, but in fact it was Peterson there. And as we do see the Australian driver parked up currently, he's getting himself ready and set to go racing. Sproul not in attendance today. We hope to see all three of the Blackout Motorsport machines on the grid next time round. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the warm-up complete. It's time to head to the grid for the round 8 endurance race. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up today. It is Philipp Hammer who starts on pole position for Team Germany, joined on the front row by Thomas Cope for Olympus Esports Vanguard. A 10th between them in qualifying, but will it be that in the race? On row number 2, it's James Parker for iRacing DCW Racing, a fan favourite, finding his way onto the second row of the grid in his best qualifying session of the season. He's joined by Patrik Thomsen for Olympus Esports Vanguard. We now have row number 3, the privateer of Danny Lee and Lars Witzig on his debut for Leaf Esports, starting P6, followed up on row 4 by Corey Lazarus of Blackout Motorsport and Daniel Sedgley for Olympus Esports Titan. Completing the top 10 on row number 5, it's an Empire Motorsport 910 with Nathan Foster and Joe Newman, followed up by Ben Peterson and Ryan Walker on what is the 6th row of the grid. Behind them on row number 7, it's Emil Koumans and Dean Powell, followed up by Jeremy DeBoer and Khalid Ramadan, with Jeremy DeBoer being your silver pole sitter. It's Chris Eddersford and Marcel Fritsch on row number 9, with row 10 completing the top 20 going to Glenn Humberstone and Alex Hitchcock, with Steve Hobbs and Chris Rance starting on your 11th row. But the grid is set, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to go racing. It's a charge to turn number 1. It's going to be Hammer on the left of your picture. It's going to be Cope on the right of your picture. It's a drag race off the line. It's lights out and away we go for round 8 here in Spain. And Hammer gets the better start of the two as they make the way up the hill. Now as they're headed towards the breakers, though, you can see in fact Cope having a slow start. He's got Parker looking up the inside, but Parker defending more versus Thompson. Parker loses the rear of the car on cold brakes. Car goes sideways. Everyone negotiates their way around the iRacing machine. And as they make the way down to the braking zone for turn number 2, which is going to be Lazarus side by side here with Witzig, as Witzig having a slow start, but Corey Lazarus leaping to the charge here. But as they make the way in towards turn number 4, side by side for them, and it's side by side between Wes Cope there and Hammer as they make the way on through, and Cope takes the lead this race as they make the way towards turn number 5. Now coming on through there, it's going to be Cope and Hammer very close nose to tail as they make that out of the corner, but Cope getting the better run through turns 2, 3 and into 4, and that's how he's got the move done. And as they make the way down towards turn number 6, onto the brakes they go. Everyone now started to calm down to a degree. Ben Peterson here, another huge gainer at the start of this race, gaining 2 places and looking around the outside there of Nathan Foster in towards turn number 6. He can't quite find it, however, and as they make the way on around, we've only had one car really go round at the start, minus James Parker, and that was Mark Oliver, but otherwise everyone else has survived the opening couple of corners as we see a Witzig looking now to try and hold off here with the move for Corey Lazarus as they head in towards turn number 9. And Lazarus still trying to get his P5 on the Witzig as they head through turn number 10. Goes a bit deep there, does the German driver. Now it's going to be the New Zealander who's on the inside in turns 11 and 12. Side by side they go, and you can see already how this battling has caused them to fall away from the front of the field. And Witzig has to go deep there, and in response backs on the throttle. And Daniel Sedgley gains the place as they make the way towards turn number 13. And on his inside goes Nathan Foster. Foster late on the brakes there, goes all in with a move. Does he get it done, however, as they exit the corner where it's side by side. It's a drag race up the hill. And as they make the way up towards turn number 1 once again, everyone right now in a charge in towards the braking zone. Also Ben Peterson behind as they go onto the anchors, and it's going to be Witzig who defends well here, as meanwhile further back we can tell you that it's a three-way fight for the leader of the silver class. Alex Hiscox has gained 3 places over 1 in class so far, and in fact we do demonstrate that gain on the side of your screen now, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to who's the biggest gainers and the biggest losers. And the biggest gainer of them all is Lucas Amano, who started P31 on the grid. He's up to P23. That's overall gains, not class gains, we should point out. But also we've had 15 place loss for James Parker. He's the biggest loser in terms of places after that near spin through turn number 1, just on that inside line on cold tyres. But here you are looking at Jeremy DeBoer, Chris Edderson and Alex Hiscox nose to tail here as they make the way down towards turn number 6. Well, with DeBoer pulling a little bit away this time, but Edderson staying close behind. Parker trying to recover this race. He goes up the inside of Hiscox into turn at number 6, and as they make the way onto the brakes, It looks though here Parker will get the move done, or will he, as he now has to fight around the outside into turn 7. He was. Hiscox backs out slightly there and lets the move go. But as they make the way in towards turn number 8, well, we're going to take a look back at that race start, ladies and gentlemen, and in terms of how they all missed James Parker, but also how Cope made the move on Hammer for the lead. So as we look back to the start of the race, we look at Parker in terms of the focus here, and this was off the line, so Parker gets a good run initially, but you'll notice how, looking around the outside, Patrik Thomsen here, and Parker really squeezed towards the apex, but the door starts to open up, and he holds a tight line, and on the power, well, the rear of the car just lets go, and in doing so, he has to stop the car, but as he does so, everyone negotiates the way around. Now, what happened in between Cope and Hammer? Hammer went deep at 2, and this is what led to Cope then being all over the back and switches back through 3, and then going into turn 4. This is bold from Cope to do this on cold tyres at the start of the race, but perhaps he feels as though once he's ahead he can start to break away. But a nice move from Thomas Cope, and that's how he gained the place as we now return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do, that was the race start from the front of the field. We will take a look back at what happened to Mark Oliver at the start of the race. He's had a difficult start, and well, he's currently in fact, he's left the pit lane. He's got repair work ongoing to the car. As we do refresh the overlay there to get your circuit map back in the top right corner of your screen. Don't worry, we're not going to let it run away for too long. Parker right now continues to try and battle his way through the field as rapidly as he possibly can, and definitely right now having to fight hard in order to gain places. Speaking of which, we've also got a gold driver here who started from towards the back of the field, making his way up in the field very rapidly. It's Lucas Romano who picks off another driver. He goes around the outside of Chris Rance at turn number 5. Down into 6 they go, gains another place, and as they make the way in towards the right hand at turn number 6, makes a nice move there. But meanwhile, we've also seen to have an incident for Alex Hiscox, who's dropped a long way down the order from what we can tell you at the moment. We will try and get an update on that very shortly. What happened to Alex Hiscox in the battle for P3 in the silver class, or really the battle for what we should say is P2 in the lead, as he was so close to the back of Debova and Editsford, but it's gone wrong for Hiscox. But meanwhile, it's going right for Editsford and Debova and Glenn Humberstone as we moved up into P3 in the class. As meanwhile, we've got Cameron Smith here gaining the place over what is, I do believe, none other than Stephen Lackwell. Had a bit of a slow run there coming through turn at number 8, and as they make their way through 9 and 10, Smith gaining another place here and really trying to regain some ground he's lost early on in the race. But as he makes his way through turn at 9 and up towards, through turn number 11 up towards 12, we do have the opportunity to get a replay of what happened to Alex Hiscox. But before we do, that's Glenn Humberstone who's gone round on the exit, the final corner. The ATEC Racing driver who was third place in the silver class. It's all gone so horribly wrong in a short span of time up to P3 in the class, and it would seem that third place in silver right now is cursed in the fact that whoever's in the place is going to be involved in an instant. And well, speaking of which, what happened to Alex Hiscox, say you ask? Here's the replay. Now at the time, chasing after was James Parker, in turn looking for the move on Editsford. This was into turn 13. Hiscox under his own volition under brake. He gets the power down, and that is power oversteer there. The rear of the car letting go as he tried to get the throttle down, and in the end catching the car just in time will be upset the rhythm of a lot of drivers. And this is how Lucas Romano started his move. In return around the outside of Chris Rance, with Marcel Fritsch taking a little bit of cheeky peek there at the inside, but Romano committed to this, and Rance defending, and will stay with this on the replay for the time as they make their way into turn number 2, and Romano is fully committed to the move through turn 2 into 3, but giving Rance some space to play with as they made their way out of 3, and that's where the move was made by Romano. Beautiful race in between them as we return to your live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do, well, things are settling down to a degree in amongst the field as we see Glenn Humberstone going around the outside here, attempts on Craig Schill. The two ATEC Tech drivers here make their way through the left-hander side by side into turn number 8, enjoying a bit of a battle here. We know how the drivers at ATEC Tech do love to have a little battles between one another, and as they make his way up towards turn number 9, through the right-hander he goes, and Humberstone not able to find his way on through, but looking for towards the back of the field. In fact, he will find his way through in the end as Craig Schill runs wide there at turn number 9, carrying too much speed into the corner, and as he does, meanwhile we look back to the front of the field, and here is Thomas Cope after what is 4 laps of race. He's on lap number 5 now, albeit it's a timed race, but we'll keep an eye on the lap counter for you, as we do know some of you prefer to keep track of laps rather than time. And as Cope makes his way down through turn number 3 and into 4, we can see now started to open up a bit of a gap on Hammer to 8 tenths, but again this gap is meaningless this right now, and that's not to begrudge or to act as a slight against Cope, but really when you see an 8/10 of a second gap with these guys in a 45-minute race, that could mean anything. It could mean that Cope is a little bit faster at this point in the race. It could mean that Hammer is just backing off and saving the tyres. It could mean that they're both running on a pretty much equal pace at the moment, and indeed it will come towards the end of the race where we reckon, unless there's a mistake for Cope early on, that's where we'll see Hammer try and make the charge and come back at Cope, unless alternatively Hammer's tyres give way midway through the race and Cope's able to last a little bit longer. That could always be an eventuality, of course, in the fact that we do know all these drivers really do work hard on protecting the tyres, and we saw at Road Atlanta in particular in round number 2, that is where Cope was able to preserve the tyres so well in the feature race, and he had so much pace in the late stages compared to the rest of the field. But as they make their way through turn number 10 up towards 11, drivers rolling off the apex there and in towards the double right of 11 and 12. You can see right now the top 5 really breaking away from the field with Dan Sedgley in P6, and they're right now pushing hard to try and close back up to the top 5. He wants to be in the battle. He wants to be there chasing after the podium places, but he's got quite a bit of work to do as the Olympus Esports Titan driver if he wants to make this happen towards the end of the race. As he makes his way on to another lap just behind Lars Witzig and Ben Peterson here close together as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the Leaf Esports machine, and you can see there the Blackout Motorsport machine of Peterson, which definitely has had one of the strongest starts here today in the gold class, inside the top 10 or just outside of it, cutting his way into the top 10, and right now eager to make further progress. And this is very different from the Ben Peterson we saw earlier on in the season where things just were not working out, and now it really is. I think it's going to be for Peterson an opportunity to pick up the places where in the absence of Sprout we normally would see Sprout and Lazarus right up the front, but Peterson is showing he's also got what it takes here to be battling inside the top 10 as Vincent goes a little bit deep, and this is going to lead to a side-by-side out the corner, or is it? As in fact, no, Peterson will tuck him behind, but he's within 2 tenths. He's in the toe here, and he could think about a move on the inside in to dry stack hairpin as they make the way onto the anchors to turn number 6, but in the end of Vincent holding the place comfortably there, and as they make their way through the right-hander, it is going to be Peterson who just has to wait a bit longer, and I think right now he's thinking about the move as Peterson, but he's also thinking about, is it really worth trying to force a move on here, given the fact they've got 2.5 seconds to Nathan Foster behind, and the Empire Motorsport pairing of Foster and Newman, with Newman just behind him, and in return they are gradually making some ground on Sedgley, who is 2.5 seconds up the road from them respectively. But as they make their way out to the corner, will Peterson here getting closer and closer as they make their way out, and we ride on board here with the Australian driver in the 881 as he comes through the right-hander 11. And you notice that Hamilton's turned in a lot earlier. Vincent goes a bit deep, runs wide. Peterson has to back off here. He has to lift, but this is going to be an opportunity. He looks on the inside of the braking. He goes all in on the brakes. Meanwhile, Vincent's going to try and hold it around the outside, give himself more track room. But Peterson says no, one's your lot, and he goes for it there. And then Peterson takes P7, but now it's to defend in the run up towards turn number 1. He covers the inside, opens the door slightly there. Vincent tries to peek his nose, and Peterson brings the door to a shut once again. And as they come into the apex, well, this is the corner where it all went wrong for James Parker. There's contact between Vincent and Peterson. They both stop the cars. Empire Motorsports Joe Newman comes into the scene of the instant, and all 3 drivers there demoted places as a result, as they now make their way back up to speed. But the biggest loser of all that contact will be Newman as a result, as they make their way down through turn number 3. And meanwhile, Emil Koopmans trying to find his way up the inside of Peterson, can't quite find it, and now it's going to be Koopmans here who finds Ryan Walker right behind him. And as they head up towards turn number 5, well, things will calm down for a brief moment, but I think it's going to be galvanising for Koopmans and Walker to see they can potentially gain places. And Dean Powell, who's gained 6 places, he is the biggest gainer in the gold class. Well, this has gone under the radar, but it won't for much longer. The privateer is up into P8 from P14 in the gold class, having a dismal qualifying session, but right now the 24 driver absolutely enjoying the race. But as they make their way out towards turn number 7 here, well, Powell's got a long train of cars behind him. Joe Newman has effectively been released at the cost of his teammate from Empire Motorsport, who had it all go wrong for him, Nathan Foster. If Newman could break away from this, he may just be able to consolidate that piece and go hunting elsewhere. But Peterson looking around the outside here to turn number 9. It's going to be a tricky place to go for the move, but he cuts it back on quarter exit. Powell goes a bit deep. Peterson on the inside into 10. Side by side they go in, but Powell is going to be run out of road as a bit of contact. Koopmans goes round there, I think of his own volition, and as Powell rejoins, he's going to lose multiple places. Up the inside goes Kenny Ramadan as well. He just squeezed his way into turn number 11. That was risky for the Somalian driver, but he just about got himself in there for some sport as they make their way down towards turn number 13. And James Parker continuing this recovery drive after what has been a difficult start to the day after it all went wrong at turn number 1. He's already back up to P11 overall in the gold class and now trying to make even further progress as we show you the class standings on the left hand side of your picture. Now as the drivers make the way on around here, you definitely can tell in terms of the fact we are starting to see the gold drivers split themselves away from the silver class field, in the fact that the majority of the silver class drivers are behind the gold 18 drivers. And as we do look here to the mid portion of the gold pack, making the way down through turn number 4, really the battle to be inside the top 10. We then look a bit further down the road to the silver battles here, including Sean Dobie versus Craig Schill, as the UKSimRacing driver trying to make a move for P11 in the silver class versus Schill and the ATEC Tech driver on the outside there. Dobie switches it back to the inside. This could be a smooth move for the Scottish driver as he comes onto the brakes. It's going to be a late apex there for what will be Schill in terms of his relative apex that he can make, and Dobie takes the move, does it up the inside, and that is done and dusted. A nice move there from the 159 driver as he comes out of turn number 2. A bit of power oversteer there, and to get the car to point in the straight line, but just about settles it down and now carries on his way as he makes his way through turn number 4 and up towards 5. As they head through the right-hander very shortly, I think right now Dobie will feel as though he can go hard start to Lathwell, as meanwhile Alex Hiscox has been involved in another spin as we're to understand it. What was turn number 6, he's gone around again, and we'll have to try and find out what exactly happened there if we can get a replay. But meanwhile, we look for the silver class to the gold class here. Battle for P3 commences, and it is Danny Lee versus Patrik Thomsen, and what we can tell you that it was Lee who was trying to make the move initially on Thomsen, but now Thomsen's come back at him as they make the way up the hill. But Danny Lee is really feeling fighty today, and to be fair credit to him, if he feels as though he's got it with all the pace that's coming on through. But remember, it is a long race. We're only coming towards the end of the first third of this race. We've got a long way to go, and therefore time management is going to be so pivotal as this race wears on. And Corey Lazarus tucked in behind there, watching eagerly here as we jump on board with the Blackout Motorsport driver from New Zealand as he comes through the left and into the right at turns 4 and 5. Now Lee coming off the inside there. I think that's as much a feint to try and get Thomsen to miss his braking point as it is Lee saying to Lazarus, look, there's no space for you here. But Lazarus right now in the double dirty air, runs wide, almost loses the car there, has to catch it where it fishtails its way off the road. And as he makes his way up towards turn number 6, we can see Lee very focused on where's the move up front, but also wary that Lazarus right now is starting to bear his fangs and is looking to bite into that battle for P3 as they make their way into turn number 7. Now on the left-hander, Lazarus going for a short shift. They're running the wipers there in order to clean the windshield of any dirt that's been picked up. And as they come through turn number 8, went 3/10 from car to car here, nothing in it as they make their way onto the brakes for turn number 9. But well, who's going to be the first one to flinch or make a mistake? I think Lee here is going to definitely be pushing the wick as much as he can, but Lazarus is focusing on making those early apexes to offset the double dirty air that he's got over the front end of the car. And as they come for 11 and 12, Lazarus there just a little bit tired of the front end. You can just see that the car not wanting to turn in, so just deciding to let it go, taking a bit more of a gentle approach. Lee goes deep, however, and this is where Lazarus could go for the move as Lee tries to get the power down in haste, putting even more oversteer onto the back of the car. And as the tank slapper calms down, they charge them out towards turn number 1. Lazarus gets ahead. Lee's going to be right in the toe there. It's 1.5 tenths between them. Lee thinks about it, but decides against it, and Corey Lazarus takes P4. Thomsen's given a breather to 9 tenths, but will it be long before we see Lazarus putting the pressure onto Thomsen, or will Lazarus and Lee start battling for P4 and let the Olympus Esports driver run off into the distance? As they come down through turn number 3, we'll have to wait and see, but as they head on through 4 and out towards 5, meanwhile in the silver class, we can tell you that DDD Verlaming and Wayne Basson are battling for position here. They're battling for P6, and it's nose to tail for them as they make their way up towards turn number 1. They go on to their 10th lap under race conditions as they make their way into the second third of this race. And now the race begins to evolve in a bit more of a challenging manner for our drivers, in the fact we are now 16 minutes in, and this is the critical point where drivers have to start thinking about that tyre preservation. Really, they should be doing it around the 10-minute mark, if not sooner. But now anyone who's been pushing hard early on really has to turn things down to give themselves tyre life towards the end of the race. Conversely, those who have not been pushing, we might start to see gain some further ground, and this is where we could start to see further developments in battles such as Coke versus Hammer for the lead of the gold class, and we could also see potentially some development for the battle for, say, P3 in the silver class between Chris Rance and Adam Greenson, which is 1.2 seconds between the two of them currently. But that's where time is going to be a factor now, and where tyre degradation will be so key. And as D. Blaming parks it on the brakes here, going into turn number 6. Well, Basson right now feeling the pressure, but not feeling pressure to defend, as we look from them up to Joe Newman. And, well, Joe Newman P7 in the gold class here. And this is a bit of an interesting one, the fact that Ben Peterson has caught up to Newman very quickly, in fact. And Newman under huge pressure here as they come down into turn 13. They make their way through the left-hander, and Peterson definitely right now, I'm not sure what he's had for breakfast this morning, given how early in the day it's going to be in Australia for Peterson. But I can tell you one thing, he is absolutely flying right now, and he's putting the pressure on Newman. But the thing about Newman is he doesn't normally feel the pressure. He's one of the most consistent drivers out there as the Empire Motorsport driver. He may not be the fastest, but as they make their way into turn number 2, he'll definitely be one of the most reliable when it comes to holding on to that place. At least in the minds of his team, he definitely will be, and well, we can attest to that as he comes down through turns 3 and 4. As he goes through the double left, we do say hello to Chris the King in the YouTube chat there, who's enjoying the broadcast. And great to see you spamming the hearts there, Chris. And, well, we're all the pleasure to have you with us. But here as they come through turn number 5, Peterson looks up the inside of Newman. And, well, was there contact between the two of them? My gut feeling says there may have been some contact, but it looks over there Peterson were really trying to look for a move that was not necessarily there. I think reliant on Newman opening the steering wheel up a little bit further, albeit he has got the car back together. That's only from one camera angle, so we'll reserve judgment, and we may be able to get a replay of that very shortly. In fact, we do have a replay, and here it is, and we ride on board Ben Peterson here, who went for the move, and there was not contact. Peterson coming in a bit too hot for the rear of the car, and you can see they're just having to catch the car as the rear end lifted, and it was the downshift. You may have heard the downshift from 4th to 3rd, and that's what set the rear of the car off. It lifted the engine up even higher, and that's what caused it all to come loose under braking. But as we return to live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen, Peterson definitely eager to make moves, but being a bit too eager there, and well, it was a near miss of the pair of them as he makes his way back up to speed now, and as he heads through turns 12 and 13. We know Peterson's very fast here. He just needs the time in order to make those places count one by one. And when he goes through the left-hander, return at number 13. Meanwhile, we do look a bit further back to Paul Joseph Clist here in the battle for P8 in the silver class. He's looking for a move versus Cameron Smith as we do switch back to the overall standings for a time. And as they make their way on through at turn at number 10. Right now, Clist trying to make some further ground. He has gained 3 places in the class that started today. A difficult qualifying session for the 92, but as he comes out of 12 and into 13, Smith, by comparison, also gained some places. Two of the biggest gainers in the silver class, if you exclude DDD Belaming's 8 places gained. And as they come on through turn at number 13, well, right now, Paul Joseph Clist falling back a little bit further. In fact, a second away now, and I think it might be a battle that's just going to go on a brief hiatus as they head onto lap number 12 for themselves. But as they do, we look from them back up to Lars Litzig, as we do see here the number 62 driver from Germany on his debut for Leaf Esports here today in the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup Season 7. Onto the brakes they all go. Peterson comes roaring up the inside like a rocket there, and Litzig does see it coming and decides to let it go. I think conscious of the fact that Peterson definitely feels as though he's in a bit of a different class right now compared to this group and wants to get the moves done, and well, we would agree with him there, but now he's going to have a bigger test in front of him in the form of James Parker. And we know the iRacing, his DCW racing driver, who was P3 on the grid. We should remind you of that if you missed it in qualifying or missed the start of the race. Well, Parker, that early mistake cost himself very dear, and now having to try and regain all the time he's lost as the time trickles on here, Jerez, as he goes in towards turn number 11. But as Walker leads this group around, leading what is essentially the quintuplet of cars around. Well, in fact, we're going to be making that a sextuplet very shortly, with the fact we also do have what is Dean Powell catch up to Khalid Ramadan. Peterson looking around the outside there versus Parker, but no way through. And Ramadan, he's managed to find his way into this P12 position. And as they head up towards turn at number 1, Powell right now closing on to the back of it all. As well, a car going slowly there in the rear of the picture. I think, in fact, that is Jeremy DeBova, who's just backed off slightly coming out the final corner to let Nathan Foster, the gold driver, take overall P15. Remember, Jeremy DeBova is the leader of the silver class, so therefore he won't want to battle with the gold class drivers. All he'll want to do is hold on to the lead of the silver class, and well, it's good timing as well in the fact that Chris Edison right now P2 silver. He's got Chris Rance behind him as they make their way down through turn number 3. And as we ride on board and look back here from the rear of the AAA car for UKSimRacing admin, where right now it's Edison under increasing pressure and Rance all over the back of him looking for that potential move. As they make their way into turn number 5, Edison on a compromise line there as they take a tighter line, and you notice that France able now to take a much more gentle flow off the apex. He stays with the temper as they make the way on down. Edison's going to defend to the middle of the road. It's going to lead to Rance looking around the outside. Rance goes all on the brakes. Edison brakes a little bit earlier to defend the inside line and not lose run of the track. And as they make the way for turn number 6, Edison defends well there. Rance looking all the way around the outside but can't seem to find a way to make it stick. And right now Edison holding on to P2 in the silver class, but this battle is not going away as Rance getting very close then to turn 8. Looks at the cutback. Marcel Fritsch, the gold driver, who is P19 overall, P16 in gold class, also wants to get involved here as Rance goes a bit deep on the extension of the apex to turn 8. And I think there he was trying to go for a cutback but miscalculated how much speed he'd need for the cutback run off the corner, and therefore Edison now slightly safe as Rance continues to get back in the tow once again. We're through the fast flying double right here at turns 11 and 12, and Rance goes wide onto the gravel, and that's going to cost him further time as they head up towards turn number 13, and Edison will feel safe at least for this corner and going up towards turn number 1. As they come through the left-hander, we still do have all 33 starters in this race, and well, Mark Oliver, the only driver who is a lap down at the moment after that unfortunate incident at the start, which we haven't been able to bring you a replay of. We do apologise for that, but meanwhile, Rance versus Edison stays straight and firmly in our screen, and as we can see here, they're making their way through turn number 1, and as they head up towards turn 2, onto the brakes they go once again, and Rance continues to mount that pressure, breathing down Edison's neck, and I can only imagine how uncomfortable it is for Edison right now as they head through the left-hander at turn number 4. But Rance, to be fair, also having to deal with his own difficulties in the fact by running this close to the back of another car, he is overheating the front tyres with the dirty air, the warm air that's wafting off the back of the 992 in front of him, and therefore he's going to be really having to work those tyres to stay this close. He'll feel as though he can get the move done sooner rather than later, but I wonder if he takes too long whether he'll back off. Well, he's not backing off here as he looks up the inside under braking into 6. Can't quite find it. Edison out brakes into the apex, and as they clear the corner, we're right on board here with Rance, who's trying everything in the proverbial overtaking textbook in terms of trying to look for the move. He goes through 7 there, a very aggressive line. He looks up the inside, and Rance really trying to tease out a move there, trying to just get his nose in there to make Edison think he's going to go all the way down the inside. But Edison showing his veteran nature and not falling for it. Rance coming back slightly as Edison goes very deep, but Rance follows him in the dirty air. And as they make their way through 10, they are stumbling over one another here. They're both pushing hard, but this is cost them both time. And right now, DeBova is 6 seconds up the road since their battling has started as they both run wide out of turn 11 into 12. With their battling, it has cost them 3 seconds to DeBova, who is just running away with the lead of the silver class. But as they come down into turn 13, when we haven't had a change of position further up the order, we've had Lutzig move up to P10 from James Parker. And well, as we do see here, the battle for P2 in the silver class make its way onto another lap. We do now look up to Lars Lutzig as we do see the German driver for Lever Esports. He's still ahead of Parker, making his way down through turn 3 into 4. And as he comes on through, we take a look back at how the move was made. Once they made the way through turn 13, you see Parker, they're going very deep, and Witzig then having to go for a drag race on the exit, and this will be a demonstration of the straight line speed difference between the two of them in terms of the fact Parker having to regroup the car. And Witzig going around the outside, and Parker thinking about it, but deciding to back out in the end. 9, there's more places to be gained later on in this race, but meanwhile there's Ben Peterson as we return to your live pictures, looking up the inside and taking P8 in the gold class, and overall off of Ryan Walker, a straightforward move there. And I think Walker, knowing that Peterson is the faster driver, and therefore by not battling with him, he would expect that Peterson will pull them up to Joe Newman, who is 4.5 seconds up the road from them as they make the way up through turn number 8 and in towards 9. As they come into the first of the double right-hand complex here, well, things are still ever close between this group of gold drivers, with Parker ahead of Khalid Ramadan in the battle for P11, Dean Powell just behind as well, and you can also see Emil Koopmans and Nathan Foster, they're all grouping together, and Nathan Foster now starting to get a bit racy here as he comes through turn at number 11 in the fact that he did lose out massively in that charge for P7 after the incident which did see Peterson and one other driver come together. Their name escapes me right now. I think it was Witzig, in fact, when they came together, and Foster just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time to also get involved in an incident at turn at number 1, but right now trying to regroup and try his way back up into the gold top 10. He's got some way to go if he wants to achieve that here today. And as they make their way on to lap number 16, meanwhile we look back to the very front of the field. This is Cope and Hammer, who are currently 6 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Cope does have a 7.5 tenths advantage over Hammer, but the point being here, you can see in the rear of the picture the gap they have opened up as Thomsen here in P3 under pressure from Corey Lazarus. Lazarus in the toe there, looking for the move on the brakes into the hairpin. They go into turn 6 side by side, and will they exit side by side? Well, Lazarus will want the place completely. Thomsen being run almost off a road there, but given the space to come back, and as the Danishman looks up the inside into turn 7, he has to back off, and Corey Lazarus there in a firm but fair move takes P3 in the gold class and overall, as meanwhile Thomsen has now got Danny Lee right behind him, and Lee will be thinking, okay, well, if Lazarus can do it, I can do it too, as they come through the right hander at turn number 9. But the thing is here, I can tell you one thing, Blackout Motorsport, we needed proof of just how much pace they've got at their fingertips and their right to be on the podium. We are seeing it from both of their drivers here today, and well, right now Patrik Thomsen, who definitely showed a lot of pace in qualifying, seems to be in a bit of a back foot here inside the top 5, with Danny Lee also looking very fast and now trying to look for the remove in return. But as they come into turn number 13, he's going to go slightly deep there, but as they exit the corner, it's all going to come back together for the trio, and we look from them to Nathan Foster, with Foster still trying to find a way past Emil Koopmans. He had a shot on the move only moments ago, but Koopmans was able to stay one step ahead, and as they come down towards turn number 13 now on the brakes, nothing between us. We've got a lock up there for Powell just up the road in front of them, but as they exit the left-hander, well, it is going to be Koopmans who steers clear as they head up towards turn number 1. As they charge their way across the timeline once again to go on to lap number 17. Meanwhile, we look a bit further down the order to the battle for P6 in the silver class between Wayne Basson and Didi Blaming, as we can see they're battling for P24 overall, and Basson right now I think just holding firm here. Blaming may have a little bit more pace under his fingertips, but Basson is one of those drivers who can make that car incredibly wide for FR20 Sim Racing when he needs to, and as they exit turn 13, it's 3 tenths between them. With the toe, they're going in the favour of Diva Laming, and therefore enabling him to get closer. In fact, he's getting very close indeed. That I wonder whether there's a bit less rear wing on the DBR Bowman Challenge machine, because he has gained an entire tenth in the run on the straightaway there, and if they're running the identical rear wing, he wouldn't have gained as much necessarily. But either way, as they head into turn number 2, it definitely looks as though here Diva Laming is in for the long haul in terms of battling, as he runs all over the back here of Wayne Basson, and we ride on board with the Challenger as they make their way through turn number 4 and into 5. Tyres absolutely sliding about here as they are showing signs of wear, and as they come into turn 5, Diva Laming goes very deep. They look to the cutback. Meanwhile, Basson's going to go deep into the corner, but Diva Laming has to fight with some power oversteer there in order to get the car to go to the apex. That's going to give Basson all the time in the world to feel safe as they head down towards turn number 6. Onto the brakes they go. No change right now, but Diva Laming very close. He could almost reach out and touch the rear wing of Basson's car, but they're here to pick up a hefty fine if this was the FIA. And as they make the way through turn 7 in towards 8, it's going to be now about just literally hugging the rear of his rival and trying to get the move into turn 1 next time around. Unless Basson makes a mistake, or alternatively Diva Laming can go for a cutback assault through turn number 9. Thinks about it here as Basson does go a little bit extended on the apex. Meanwhile, Diva Laming goes deep itself, and again that dirty air just carrying the front end of the car away from its steering inputs, and it does mean that right now he has to settle to stay behind. But as they exit turn number 11 and up towards 12, with a little bit of run wide there as well for equal measure. We look from them back up to the battle to be P10 overall in the gold class, and this is Ryan Walker. He holds on to the coveted position right now as he has got a long pack of cars behind him, and he runs wide out turn number 4, catches the car before it goes wayward, and well, that's going to be James Parker around the outside, and Parker does not need an invitation to take a place off him, but he will take that as they make the way out towards turn number 6 now. But as they exit the corner, you can see there just behind Dean Powell under increasing pressure as well from Emil Koopmans and Nathan Foster. But meanwhile, it's going to be Khalid Ramadan who thinks about the move. He can't quite find it. Emil Koopmans also looks at the move here, but it's also to cover off Foster, who's trying to go around the outside of him into turn number 6. Can't quite find the move. It's getting very feisty indeed outside of the top 10 in the gold class here, and long may it continue as they make their way up towards turn number 8, and all of these drivers right now itching for a sparring fight as they make their way in towards turn number 9, and all looking for further places. Meanwhile, speaking of places and battles for higher positions in the battle for P2 in the silver class, here it is still. It is still Edersford ahead of Rance as they come out of turn number 8 and into 9, and Edersford once again under intolerable pressure as they make their way for the right-hander, and it's going to be Rance up the inside there with a cutback as Edersford goes slightly deep. Now Edersford tries to do exactly the same to Rance. He'll have this in the run to turn 11. Surely he's going to be on the inside, and Rance will have to back out. They go side by side through the fast right-hander. Rance goes to the gravel, and Edersford retakes P2, literally dishing out a bit of medicine just served to him brilliant racing action between the two of them there, and well, they might be letting Taboa run away with this, but right now, in their minds, I think they're battling for the win of this race, albeit they're effectively battling for P2, but it'll feel like a victory when this is all said and done. And as they make their way up the hill towards what is turn number 1 once again, ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, with all the racing action still to go and what you've seen so far, we do have the Driver of the Day vote now open, and you can vote for your Driver of the Day using the link in the YouTube chat. It's a simple Google form. Do make sure to vote. Votes will close as of midnight tonight, and let us know who's been your Driver of the Day. And well, last time out, the Driver of the Day was Daniel Sedgley with 60% of the vote, and will it be him again or another driver? You decide, and we will keep that vote open to midnight tonight. But as we look to the racing action here between Edison and Rance, with a great battling between them, it is enabling Adam Grieveson to close up, and well, now that is going to raise a question mark for Edison in terms of how much more does he battle this? Can he try and fight force Rance back towards Grieveson, as Rance is going to look around the outside here into turn 6 behind in the rear of the picture. That's a run around the outside for Lee Dima, who literally is overpassed by Lucas Romano. But as we look back from them to what is Edisford versus Rance, Edisford still stays ahead despite Rance getting ahead under braking into the hairpin, but on the outside line it's very difficult to pull off. But as they go through the left hand at turn number 8 towards 9, well, right now you can imagine that Grieveson's rubbing his hands together. Well, he'll keep them both on the steering wheel, but in his head he'll be rubbing together and thinking, how can I pick them both off as they make the way through turn number 10. With Rance and Edisford right now have really made this a grudge match in terms of just battling back and forth, and everybody around them, I don't think they're quite aware of the fact that Grieveson is getting ready to take the place off of both of them. But whilst this is playing out, and meanwhile they make their way up towards turn number 13, we've also had a back and forth here between Patrik Thomsen and Danny Lee in the battle for P4 in the gold class. These two have been exchanging the place back and forth, and well, here's a replay from only moments ago when it almost exchanged places into turn 1. And you can see Lee looking around the outside here under braking. This was 2 laps back, and as they headed into the right hander, in the end it was Thomsen who defended well. Lee trying to switch back to the inside, goes all the way, but then thinks better of it, and that's how Thomsen was able to hold on. But as we return to live pictures, Thomsen goes deep at turn 6, and Danny Lee takes P4. Well, the timing there could not have been more critical in terms of us returning to live pictures to see that unfold. But Danny Lee right now making the move count, and indeed Patrik Thomsen there with a rare error, but that's where the tyre degradation is going to start to really pick up. And now this is where we enter the phase of the race where drivers have been pushing hard early on, as we've seen Dean Powell fending off Nathan Foster there on the inside into turn number 6, and out of it, those who have been pushing hard earlier on in the race may start to lose places in the fact they just haven't got the tyres left to race anymore. And well, as they make the way on around here on lap number 20, I think we are starting to see some drivers are really feeling the pinch of tyre life, and Dean Powell being no exception as he continues to try and keep what is there Foster and Koopmans behind. And keep in mind as well, this is a bit of an interesting one. We have Jeremy DeVoe, the silver class leader, now on the back of this battle, and I wonder with his 11-second advantage over Chris Edison whether he'll feel he's safe with 10 minutes to go. Should these guys battle and continue to rip lap time out of one another, whether he'll feel safe not to be caught up, as there's contact there between Wes Foster and Powell, as Foster comes to the pit on the inside, locks up the brakes, and well, in the end, for the Empire Motorsport driver, it's all gone wrong, as Nathan Foster has had to be towed to the pits due to damage picked up, and I think that is a premature retirement as well as a result of that contact. But Powell right now, a car that's slightly damaged, will be trying to keep Emil Koopmans at bay, and well, that may calm down the battling for the remainder of the day here in the battle for P13 in the gold class. And overall, it's unlucky for some, but still, you can imagine that with regards to number 13, Powell's making his own today as he makes his way on around through turn number 4. But as they head up towards turn 5, and meanwhile, we do give you an update on those weather conditions, ladies and gentlemen. And you can see track temperature now has dropped to 43 degrees centigrade, so it is a slightly cooler track compared to when we started at 48 degrees going into the race session. But at the same time as well, this is still a circuit where the tyres are going to be blisteringly hot, and I don't say that with a pun intended, but well, if they do push the tyres too hard, they may end up blistering them and therefore losing the life of the tyre considerably, and nobody wants to see the tyre completely go away by the end of today. But this weather right now absolutely unrelenting in terms of the Spanish sun. And well, as we do look here from Dean Powell back up to Danny Lee, he may have got ahead of Patrik Thomsen only moments ago, but Thomsen trying to come back at him now as they make the way through turn number 13. And as they come through the left-hander, we can tell you that Dean Powell has just had an off-track, off-camera as we looked away. and therefore he has released Emil Koopmans and also Jeremy DeBoer on through, albeit I believe Jeremy DeBoer has actually found his way past Emil Koopmans as well as part of that chain of events. And as we look to the class standings here on the left hand side of your screen, it is going to be 10 minutes remaining. A close fight here for P4, the best of the rest outside the podium place in the gold class between Lee and Patrik Thomsen, as Thomsen right now continues to stay right behind him as they make their way up for a left-hander turn at number 4 from their battle. We do also have a very close battle still growing for P2 in the silver class. In fact, it's P2 through to P4 with Eddersford, Rance and Greason all together. That's Lucas Romano at the back of the quartet on pitch. He's the gold class driver in P15 in class, and well, his next target is Dean Powell, who is up the road ahead of the 3 silver drivers here. But right now that is a gap effective 8 seconds for Romano through to Powell, and that might be as far as Romano goes today in terms of his drive from the back of the field. But we've also got an update, ladies and gentlemen. We do have 3 retirees from this race confirmed, all in the silver class. We've had our most recent one of Craig Schill. We also have Mark Oliver and also Stephen Laffwell earlier on in the race. Unfortunately, we are down to 30 cars running on circuit currently with Cameron Smith in the pit lane, and the car is being repaired after some damage picked up. So we'll have to wait and see if they are able to get that car back out on circuit, or whether it will be another retirement. Here we have Rance, who has the better run out of turn 5 versus Eddersford, and as they make their way down to 6 this time, well, Rance has been here before. He's tried to make the move, and Eddersford has just simply defended on the outside and made Rance have to go the long way round, and the UKSimRacing UK driver once again thwarted there. I think what he's trying to do, he's trying to get Eddersford to outbrake himself into the corner and just go straight on, but it's just simply that Eddersford right now is not faltering in his defence as they make the way through turn number 8 and up towards 9 they go, and Rance is knocking on the door left, right and centre as we ride on board the rear here of Eddersford's car. You can see they're having a fight with the steering slightly, Eddersford, as he misses the apex of turn 9, but thankfully for him, Rance and Greason also do the same, and as they make their way up towards turns 11 and 12, hit double right coming up, and you see Rance getting so close on turning, but he's carrying more speed. He's also at risk of running onto the gravel as they make their way down towards the braking zone for turn number 13, where Emil Koopmans into the pit lane. I wonder if that is potentially a repair work on the car, a drive-through penalty, but either way, Rance goes deep, and it's going to be Greason who looks up the inside. It's going to be a side-by-side dash up towards turn number 1, and well, has Greason got enough speed here, or has Rance got this covered? Well, Rance will come across to the racing line. Greason switches back to the inside. He goes all in the brakes. Rance turns in, but he's got the FR20 SimRacing car there, and as they give one another space, Rance gets the power down and keeps Greason at bay. Greason will mine the lock-up, but it doesn't end in tears. Instead, it ends up with Rance holding on to P3, and as they make the way up towards turn number 4 now, well, Chris Rance definitely feeling the pressure just as much as Eddersford is, with the fact that one mistake and it's brought Greason right back into this battle. But as they head up towards turn number 5 now, we'll stay with this battle for the time being, ladies and gentlemen, as this is the closest battle on circuit. If we do see some other battles start to grow, we will look to those as well. But as they make the way on down towards turn number 6, well, right now I think it's more Greason trying to make the move versus Rance, rather than Rance on Eddersford. As you can see, Greason I think now has the tyre advantage, and that is only going to help him more and more as they make the way up towards turn number 7. As they go through left-hander, Lucas Romano still watching this with eager eyes and thinking that he can potentially gain some more overall places. Greason will be hoping that Romano just stays there. The DBR driver, however, has other ideas as he looks potentially for the move here into turn number 10. And well, we are hearing that Foster and Koopmans both in the pit lane as we see Greason go wide at turn number 9, and in doing so, Adam Greason drops behind Lucas Romano and drops out of this battle, and it buys Chris Rance a bit of breathing room. And Eddersford right now may be thinking darn in the fact that now he's got to worry about Rance coming right after him all the way through to the end. With 5 minutes to go here, time trickles down, ladies and gentlemen. Still plenty of racing to come, and well, whilst there is a bit of a breather, we do look to the front of the field, and this is Thomas Cope, your race leader for Olympus Esports Vanguard, who continues to charge on here, and well, holding an advantage of 1.7 seconds over Philipp Hammer. And I think the advantage in terms of tyre life and lap time is just gradually going the way of Cope, albeit I say that on the last lap Hammer was a tenth faster, so I think Cope and Hammer exchanging lap times, but the key point being here that Cope is really working to a logic of whatever lap you can do, Philip, I can do it too, and that's a very strong place to be in if you can do that as this race winds down, in the fact that Hammer will have to push more and more in order to try and bring that gap to Cope down. And when you're made to push harder and harder, particularly towards the end of the race when the car's not in its ideal condition, there's a lot less fuel in the car as well, so it's a very lightweight car on tyres that have seen much better days. It means that the mistake threshold becomes much easier to reach, and while Hammer doesn't make mistakes, he won't want to make any, but he also want to take the win, but the question is the P2 more valuable today, or does he want to try and hunt down that win? And I suspect he may be starting to thinking about settling for that P2 here, given the fact it will be his best result of the season outside of the win last time out at VIR, and it will match the second place that we saw him achieve in what was the feature at VIR, and therefore it'll be some huge points in his bank account, and therefore he will move into P2 going into the next pair of rounds in a week's time. But as he makes his way down through turn number 3 into 4, we look back to the battle for P2 here in the silver class, and once again, whilst it's the battle for P15 overall, it means so much more to the pair, as we are hearing that both Nathan Foster and Emil Cummins have had to be retired. But meanwhile, Edison there has a slow run through turn number 11 into 12, and Rance goes up the inside immediately, and well, for Chris Edisford, it falters at the final stages there with only a couple of laps to go. And let's take a look back at that in terms of what exactly happened there to Chris Edisford, in the fact it just looks like the car gave up. As he made his way into the corner, Edison carrying the speed through, runs a bit wide, and there it just looks like the front end had no grip to offer anymore, and for Edison, as much as he tried, Rancing in, nailing the corner and waiting for a mistake to come, and only one mistake was needed for Rance to take that P2 in the silver class. As they make their way up towards turn number 4 there, and almost towards 5 very shortly. We do say hello to Simon B, who has been cheering on a number of drivers, including Chris Edisford, all the way up through today. We've only just seen you there in the chat. Apologies, Simon. But as we do see Lucas Romano tucked in behind Chris Edisford now, and I think Edisford may be thinking about letting Romano go, with Bridgestone being at 1.9 seconds behind and not really a threat at this point. We do have a prime battle here for the final spot inside the golden overall top 10. It's James Parker versus what is Kelly Ramadan, and Ramadan is getting closer and closer as they make their way through turn number 9 to 10 here. Through the double right they go, and as they exit the corner, where it is a gap of 7 tenths, as they head in towards what is the end of the lap, as Lucas Romano in fact had an off track and has had to be towed to the pit. We'll try and understand what exactly has happened there very shortly, but as the driver's coming down, it's all going wrong for some, as Ryan Walker's had an off track at turn number 12, and you can see there Jeremy DeBova, your silver leader, creeping on through, so he's gained another overall position, but it won't mean anything in terms of his final finishing position in the silver class, which is the most important one. And then the closest battle we do have on circuit, in fact, with only a lap or 2 to go here, is Steve Hobbs looking for the move at 4P7 in the silver class versus DDD Vlaming, as they head on through at the right hander at turn number 9. Lock up there for Vlaming, and Hobbs will try and get the run into turn 10. It's going to be a close knit run, but in the end Hobbs on too tight a line to really be able to force the door open further, and therefore has to wait to fight another corner as they make their way out to 10 in for 11 and 12. And Hobbs trying to make further progress, but it'll feel very different compared to the progress he made last time out of VIR. Definitely not the same results here today, but still plenty of rounds to go as he locks up there into turn 13. And a lot of drivers now starting to make off tracks from him. Daniel Sedgley has had an off track in P6 in the gold class, hasn't lost any places. Glenn Humberstone has gone off in P25 overall, and with that, I think the brakes and also the tyres are really now in their last ditch place in terms of what's available capability wise. But here we look back to your overall race leader with 10 seconds to go, ladies and gentlemen. I think we may see the race end here on lap 26. It's going to be very close. We're going to wait to see if the checkered flag is called here, or whether it'll be a white flag. It is a white flag just about with 2 seconds to go. We are on to a 27th and final lap here at the Circuito de Jerez in Spain. And as Thomas Cope crossed the line, now this is also going to throw another conundrum in the works. I wonder if any teams have planned for a 26 lap race, and Cope literally creeping across the line with 2 seconds to spare. That's as close as you want to call it, but now with a 2.2 second advantage over Team Germany's Philipp Hammer, you would imagine that Cope can now start to turn the wick down slightly and just bring the car home. But we could see some drivers have to do some late fuel saving in order to get themselves to that final checker flag, and if anybody has not banked on the fact there'll be a 27th and final lap here, well, it could be telling in short order. We may see some drivers sunny fall by the wayside right at the end. But meanwhile, as we do look to Chris Edisford here, he's all back over the rear of Chris Rancey in the battle for P2 in the silver class. They go on to one more lap, and that is Adam Greaveson, who goes round out to the final corner. And Alex Hiscox takes P4 in the silver class. He makes his way on through. And well, as Greaveson returns the car to the right direction of racing, the FR20 SimRacing driver avoids the wall, but he loses a place, and that's going to be a bruise there that drops into P5 in the silver class. But Rancey and Edisford here still nose to tail as they come through turns 2 and 3, and well, now the shoe is on the other proverbial foot, and it looks like Rance managing the pressure right now, but he's still got over half the lap to go here as this race comes towards its natural conclusion. And will Rance be able to hold on? That is the question as they make their way through the right-hander at turn number 5. But meanwhile, we must look from them to the front of the field, ladies and gentlemen, because after making the move on Philipp Hammer after the opening couple of corners, he's never looked back, and Thomas Cope will return to winning ways after his holiday. He comes on through to take your checker flag, and with it, Olympus Esports Vanguard's Thomas Cope is your winner in the round 8 endurance round here at what is the Circuito de Jerez, ahead of Philipp Hammer P2. It'll then be Corey Lazarus P3, and then behind them by a further 7 seconds, Danny Lee comes on through for his best performance of the season, P4 in the gold class and overall, ahead of Patrik Thomsen P5, Daniel Sedgley P6, and then it will be a further 7 seconds to Joe Newman, who comes across line P7 for Empire Motorsport. And a great day today for the 97 driver, ahead of Ben Peterson P8. It will be Lars Vetzig on his debut for Leaf Esports in the series, takes P9 in a good drive there for the number 62 driver. Khalid Ramadan P10, and it'll be Jeremy DeBova who makes it another win for DBI Bowman Challenge, and a championship lead that only ever continues to grow for the 14 driver. He takes a silver class win, best of rest, P11 overall, ahead of Ryan Walker, and it'll be Dean Powell P13, the privateer, ahead of shortly James Parker, who crosses the line. It's then Chris Eddersford who in a surprise turn takes second place in the silver class. We're not quite sure what's happened, but it looks as though he's taken the place. Alex Hiscock will recover to the podium in the silver class. I think Rance has run out of fuel when the Team Welsh drive comes on through there to complete the silver podium. Rance is P4, but he's definitely out of fuel. The UKSimRacing UK drive just didn't have enough left. Adam Greason at P5 in the silver class, P20 overall, ahead of Wayne Basson, who comes on through very shortly. As he got enough fuel, he goes slowly out the final corner. He's going to lose out to Steve Hobbs. It's drama for Basson at the line as well, or is it, as they both seem to exchange places here? Perhaps this is for the championship that they've given Hobbs the opportunity to pick up some more points, but either way, it's Hobbs ahead of Basson, with then what is Glenn Humberstone P23, ahead of Sean Dobie P24 overall, Diddy Laming P25, and then it will be Paul Joseph Bliss and Cameron Smith who finished P26, P27 respectively. They've already finished their races a lap down. But goodness me, it does look as though a number of drivers ran out of fuel right at the end of this race, and we'll take a look back at that very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way towards the pit entry. Well, here is Thomas Cope, the Olympus Esports Vanguard, your winner today over in the gold class. He leads the Olympus Esports formation on through, and what I think Cope right now, there will be a grin on his face, because he knows he's just proven a point, which is, you may have got pole position today, Hammer, but I'm the one who's brought home the lion's share of the points in the race. And well, in the end, it took a small error right at the start, and they put pressure on one another all the way from start to finish, but Thomas Cope has found a way to take victory once again. And meanwhile, he does donuts on the start finish straight there, and burning what rubber is left on the rear tyres, we look to Jeremy DeBova, your silver class winner. And well, at VIR, he didn't quite have the pace to be on winning form, but here today, he had the pace in qualifying, and he's shown it in the race as well. And well, for the number 14 driver, the sky seems to be the limit as this silver championship continues to go his way, albeit we've got a long way to go yet, but he'll feel as though something special is potentially happening this season already as he makes his way into the pit lane. And well, we're wondering about what exactly happened between Chris Eddersford and Chris Rance in the battle for P2 right at the end, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the replay, and as they made their way through turn 5, so this was literally after we left them to see Cope cross the line, it was a drag race down towards turn number 6, and Rance got it wrong at turn 5. He went deep, and in fact, I think they're having to let the place go. Perhaps he's looked at the fuel gauge and realised there's not enough fuel in that car in the end to get it to the end, and therefore he's had to settle for P3, or at least his 4 at the time, and then he's lost the place at Alex Hiscock's literally in the run to the checker flag. But either way, a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure for Chris Rance. And well, with that, a dramatic end today for UKSimRacing UK. But as we do return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, most of our drivers now in the pit lane. We now do take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So after a fast, frantic and absolutely dramatic race here at the Circuito de Jerez in Spain today, Thomas Cope brings home the win in the second endurance race round of the season for round number 8 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup Season 7. That's the win overall and in the gold class for Olympus Esports Vanguard by 3.2 seconds the end over Philipp Hammer for Team Germany. It was Team Germany who started on pole today, and Hammer in the end making a small mistake which cost him very dear in the first couple of corners. But then when Cope was ahead, it was about just managing the race for Cope up, and he seemed to be able to manage the race to the pace that Hammer was able to bring to bear, and in the end Cope just finding the edge when he needed to. P3 to Corey Lazarus, the Blackout Motorsport driver, absolutely delivering there to take the podium, and with that, whilst he may have been 3.2 seconds off of the top two, he'll still feel as though that's a win to be on the podium with the greats of the field, and indeed Corey Lazarus once again showing. And then these longer races, he really is a force to be reckoned with. Danny Lee picking up his best performance of the season, P4, the privateer. A whole second clear of Patrik Thomsen, with the Olympus Esports Vanguard driver making a couple of small errors, which cost him dear in the late stages. But still, it can't be denied the Dane giving it everything he could to take on Lee, but in the end having to settle for P5. Olympus Esports Titans, Dan Sedgley at P6 there. Not quite on the pace of the top 5 today, but 9 of some good points in the bag, ahead of Joe Noon for Empire Motorsport, who with that P7 there, taking one of his best performances of the season, and finishing a second clear of Ben Peterson, the Blackout Motorsport driver from Australia, who was an absolute rocket today. It didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to. With the pace he had, he could have been on form for a top 5 finish, but still he'll build from today going into next round. And there'll be Lars Witzig P9 there, the Leaf Esports driver, having some great battles in the midfield of the gold class and getting some good points to start off his championship campaign. Had a Khalid Ramadan for P10 for SomSport, and well, it wasn't quite the result perhaps he wanted here, but still Ramadan giving it everything he could and taking the top 10 finish. Best of the rest, P11 there, your silver class winner, Jeremy DeBoer by DBR Bowman Challenge, and what a drive from Jeremy DeBoer, not a fault to it, and indeed not under pressure at any point, just maintaining the gap and causing it to grow as the laps went on. And he finished ahead of the gold trio of Ryan Walker, Dean Powell and James Parker, and a special mention to James Parker, who lost it all in turn at number 1 and battled back to P14 overall for Arrow Race Summaries DCW Racing, but definitely a missed opportunity, and he'll be aware of that more than most. Chris Eddersford at P15 net, second place in the silver class for UKSimRacing admin team, and he'll feel as though it's finally coming his way, the potential results here after all the blood, sweat and tears that has gone in. He had to battle hard for it today, but he'll be pleased with that, ahead of Lee Deemer and the Fixed Auto Aberdare driver, not quite on the pace of the top 10 of the gold class, but still having a good shot of it nonetheless, ahead of Alex Hiscox, the silver third place driver, P17 overall, and the Team Wales driver there completing the silver podium of DeBoer, Eddersford and Hiscox. And again for Hiscox, much like what we saw for James Parker, an early instant cost him dear, but Alex Hiscox battling his way back through to the podium, and also taking the advantage of Chris Rance running out of fuel towards the very end of the race. Marcel Fritsch, Chris Rance and Adam Greason complete your top 20, with Adam Greason's unfortunate spin costing him dear when he could have been on form for a potential podium, particularly given the fact that Rance was to run out of fuel and therefore lose the podium by default. And then Steve Hobbs P21 behind his FR20 Sim Racing teammate, but ahead of his fellow teammate Wayne Basson there, and indeed the trio from FR20 Sim Racing, knowing some key points have gone astray today. Glenn Humberstone P23, he just finished behind Basson at the finish line, with Sean Doe P24 there, and Didi Vlamen P25 in a race where he wasn't quite on the pace today, struggled in qualifying, and that manifested further in the race for DBR Bowman Challenge, but still ahead of Paul Joseph Clears, who finished a lap down for Olympus Esports Titan, and Cameron Smith, the last of the finishers, 2 laps down there for the privateer outfit in the number 23. We then come on to the retirees from today's race, of which we did have a grand total of 6 retirees, Lucas Romano being the first of them in the order, P28 by DBR, ahead of Emerald Coomans for Apex Missers, and they'll both be classified as finishers as they did complete over half the race distance, with 27 laps being the total today. The same will go for Nathan Foster for Empire Motorsport, and also for Craig Shield P31 for 88 Tech, and Mark Oliver and Stephen Lathwell as well. They'll have finished the race effectively as they completed over half the race distance. So we technically do have 33 finishers, albeit 6 of those being retirees, and the other 27 finishing on circuit. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our racing action here in Spain. But it doesn't conclude today's show. We'd just like to remind you, first and foremost, that you haven't already thought about voting for your driver of the day. You definitely do want to vote for your driver of the day, and do so using the link in the YouTube chat. We just reposted it once again, and do let us know who was your driver of the day here at the Circuito de Jerez. But also, very shortly, we've got our post-round interviews coming up, and we'll be hearing from 4 of our drivers up and down the grid in terms of their thoughts and how it went today. And we're back for those in approximately 10 to 15 minutes time. So don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And today, we're going for gold with a silver focus. In the fact, we're going to be starting off with our gold class winner, Thomas Cope for Olympus Esports Vanguard. And then we're going to be coming on to our 3 podium finishers in the silver class, starting with the class winner, Jeremy DeBoer for DBI Bowman Challenge. Then coming over to Chris Edisford for UKSimRacing admin team. And lastly, for Team Wales, is Alex Hiscox, who rounded off the silver class podium in P3. 3 very different stories in the silver class, and we'll get to hear their stories. But before we do, we start off with the story of the leading driver at the front of the field, and well, talking a little bit about that battle into turns 1, 2 and 3. It's with Thomas Cope, and he does join me now in the interview room. So as we welcome Thomas to the interview room. Thomas, I appreciate it has been some time since we've seen you on the grid today. Hope you had a nice holiday, and what a way to return from your holiday than picking up a win at the Circuito de Jerez.
Yeah, it was a hard fight all the way to the end of the race. Philipp was doing an amazing job with his tyres also. Managed to stay in with, I got in front at the start, which was probably the optimal position because I could demand the pace and look after my tyres in the clear air. Philipp just managed, I don't know how he's managed to keep his tyres to the state he has towards the end of the race, but he was able to push me right to the final couple of minutes.
Now, it was always going to come down to small mistakes and minor moves that would be the difference, as we do see the battle between the two of you play out on the screens here and the move you made into turn 4 in the opening lap. But dialing it back to qualifying, we saw throughout the qualifying session a back and forth between yourself and Philipp Hammer, which in the end saw Hammer take pole position by just over a tenth. We were looking at you when you seemed to be on course for a potential pole lap right towards the end of the session, but a small mistake just crept in at the end. Was that the difference?
Yeah, just pushing too hard towards the end, and just some unlucky situations that mentally kind of diffused me a little bit with a car ahead, created some understeer on the front of my car. Ironically, a team car of Philipp's, but I got to let Philipp have the pole. It was still a good lap. The session was really soft. It was really hard. It wasn't easy by any means. So all I can say is really great lap by Philipp. And then obviously it put it down to the start of the race, and yeah, the start was another entity on its own.
Oh, indeed. And coming to that race start, we always knew it was going to be a charge off the line between the two of you. And it looked as though turn 1, it didn't quite come together, but as soon as you both broke into turn 2, you were ready to pounce when Hammer just went slightly too deep.
Yeah, I knew going into the race with the track temps and just the nature of the track that the optimal racing position was the front of the pack in the clear air. So obviously not being able to keep it around the outside and have a good start to get past him on T1. When I noticed that Hammer had the mistake into turn 2, it really helped open up the door to keep on strategy and try and take the lead of the race. And good, clean, hard racing between myself and Philipp. Really going through what is effectively turn 4, I think. The long left-hander. And then managed to just maintain the gap then to the race.
Well, indeed, and then taking the lead of the race after what was a very close-knit boat between the two of you, we saw you both gradually break away from the rest of the field, and it seemed as though everything you could do, Hammer was able to match you and vice versa. And in these conditions, just what is going on in terms of you having to manage the tyres in absolutely scintillating heat, but also you've got to make sure you don't lose that lead?
Yeah, there's a couple of things going on, just braking early and not braking too hard and using the full brakes, which would help heat up the tyres. Great in cold conditions, but for the hot conditions, try and stay off the brakes as much as possible, let the car roll at speed. Obviously, you had the straights after the heavy braking zones, where you could really help relieve a bit of the tyre pressure. But the odd couple of mistakes from Philipp, not by much, like only talking a tenth or two, really just did help to just relax on the pace a little bit, take it easy in a corner or two, let him catch up, let him keep close and not try and break away straight early. And that helped keep my tyres in somewhat check to just, in theory, just manage the gap between myself and Philipp.
Well, indeed, as we look at some of the early pictures of where Philipp was telling you very closely, I can only imagine you running in clear air gives you the ability to perhaps be a bit more flexible in the pace you bring to each and every lap, whereas Hammer's got to try and push through that wall of dirty air behind you.
Yeah, with the Porsche Cups, the closer you run, the actual better it is for the tyres in terms of pushing, but Philipp was actually just outside of that optimal range, being a bit too far back, in my opinion, but I'm not sure. I'd have to go and review exactly what he was doing, but Philipp was putting on some great pace and a great show to even stay close in the draft in the dirty air. So I just got to take my hat off and say congrats to him. Obviously, well-deserved P2, considering the tyre situation and where he was placed all race. But yeah, it was a good, hard race all the way through.
Oh, indeed, and I think everybody tuning in would agree with that. And I have to ask, with the way this race has broken up in terms of the 45 minutes, and we've talked about the tyre life of the Porsche Cup car being around 15 to 20 minutes in length, did you have in your mind a way you were going to approach this race in terms of perhaps breaking it up into stints? So perhaps pushing hard at first, relaxing, and then perhaps going back on the throttle towards the end of the race? Or was it just gauge the pace as the race developed?
There were... And I'm not going to go too much into my own strategies for the car, at least, but there's 3 main stages that I like to look at the race, and you got your start and your opening stint and your end and your middle, really. And it's just maintaining my own pace that I'd set to myself and my own lines and how I wanted to run the car in those situations, knowing roughly how the car reacts from all the testing and lap time and just general track time in the car I have. To know roughly how it would perform through certain corners. I would literally put just how the race run for myself, just down to the immense time that I've had with the car in sort of big situations and big race leagues as well.
I see, and quite a way to break it up, and then indeed a very technical approach to it. But then looking ahead now to the wider championship, another win in the bag today, 38 points in your bank account, and it does mean you're now on 142 ahead of Philipp Hammer's 97, so a gap that's growing up to 45 points, and we head in a week's time to rounds 9 and 10 at Road America. How are you feeling for the final return to the United States?
Not great, to be honest. The guys in my team will know Road America is not one of my greatest tracks, so I'm going to do my best. I just need to keep scoring points consistently and sort of stay in the top 5 now for the rest of the championship, and go from there. So it's just staying nice and consistent, which I think I can do for the rest of the championship. Obviously, a win will be nice here and there. Obviously, we've got a lot of heat racing coming up in terms of the next 3 weeks, so we'll see what we can do and pull as many points out of each heat race as we can. So, yeah, just stay consistent and safe. And I'm not going to put a commentator's curse or any curse on it, but I think we could have a good run to the end of the championship.
Well, we do look forward to seeing that run start in a week's time at Road America. But just before we do let you go, Thomas, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, the whole Olympus Sports squad, Charles Michel for the opportunities of managing, all the sponsors, IMB Racewear with the amazing gear, HSR Auto for putting our car on the track, and that's it really. All the guys in the team that was racing today, I know it was a tough one for them, but they really put the heart out in practicing and getting ready for the event, and future events we're getting ready for as well. PJC doing an amazing job, as always, doing his best on track. I know he gets caught up in some situations, but it's always nice to give him a shot. He's always a hard worker, does his best as all the time. You guys, I see you guys, yourself, Paul, for the broadcast, and then the whole UKSR organisation, for even putting on the leagues. It's an amazing job what they do, and all the hard work that they do behind the scenes.
Well, with that, Thomas, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room once again, and congratulations on returning to winning ways after your holiday. In fact, one question I didn't ask, where did you go on holiday, just for curiosity's sake?
Some people might know, but unfortunately there's been a load of fires in Greece, and ironically I was in Greece on the island of Rhodes, where the heat of the fires were, so luckily I was safe and away from the fires. We were about 15 k's away, so we were safe and sound. I was able to watch you guys on the broadcast, but yeah, I had a lovely holiday in Greece.
Oh, goodness me. Well, glad to hear you're all safe and sound and able to join us. But with that, congratulations once again on a superb drive to victory today. And we do look forward to seeing you out of the circuit in a week's time at Road America.
Thank you very much, Paul.
So here and there from Thomas Cove, our gold class winner today, and what a drive to victory. And indeed, coming back from what was in the end a little bit of a troubled holiday in terms of the conditions out in Greece and indeed the surrounding islands, and well, best wishes, and from the UKSimRacing, best wishes going out to everybody affected by that, both tourist and local resident. But coming back and charging onto circuit today, and well, it didn't quite work out in qualifying, missing out in the end by a 10th, and will look to be on course for a potential pole lap, but that did not come to manifest itself at any point. But instead they're going to turn things around in the race, and it would always be fine margins, but the key point was he needed to be up front. That's where the target was. If he could lead the race, then he could potentially hold on to the win all the way through to the end, given the fact the hot conditions at this circuit combined with the number of sweeping corners around here and the effect of the dirty air, and that opportunity manifested at turn 2 on the open lap, and once he saw the door was open, he didn't waste any time seizing it and going for the move up the inside. And close racing between them as we continue to look at the pictures here between Thomas Cove and Philipp Hammer, and you can see how as time went on, the two of them broke away from the rest of the field, and also on top of that, Hammer eventually had to relinquish the chase, but still, it just goes to show how hard they're pushing each other. And whilst Cove right now may feel as though he's got a bit of a run in towards the end of the championship, whether he's able to keep those consistent results, it could be a championship that's going to come his way. Like he said, he's not going to take anything for granted, and perhaps the bogey circuit is coming up next week at Road America, where he hasn't typically gone strong, but can he go strong in this series this season? We'll have to wait and see. Then coming on to our second interview of the day, we do go from the gold class then to the silver class, and we're going to start off by hearing from a multitude of drivers in what will be Jeremy Debova, and well, what a performance it has been today for the silver class driver, championship leader, and going into tonight with momentum on his side, and will carry that momentum forward and making another endurance race win. But as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, we'll hear his perspective on what has been a solid performance. In fact, he does join me now. So as Jeremy Debova joins me in the interview room, good evening to you, Jeremy. And once again, another endurance race round comes around, and you're absolutely on top form, and you carry it through from qualifying into the race to pick up another win. You must be absolutely pleased.
First of all, good evening, Paul. And yeah, it was a very good race again, and we train a lot to keep that pace so high as possible in the class. And yeah, the moment it worked out for us, so I'm happy, very happy, Zen.
Well, it's glad to hear that it's all worked out with regards to the practice and the training that's gone in. And let's talk a little bit about qualifying first. There has been a very technical circuit, and one which really pushes the Porsche to its limit. And in terms of pushing it to the limit, we found with yourself, you're able to put the car on pole position in class in the end by what was only 200ths versus Chris Eddersford. It looked tight in qualifying.
Yeah, it was a very nice battle, and I spoke just with Chris, and he also said he didn't know where the pace come from at that point, and yeah, but also for me it was a little bit surprise, because on the practice we had a little bit more gap, but yeah, at that point it's so fun that the classes are so close to between each other, and yeah, it was a very good fight, and yeah, it was well happy that I ended in pole, but yeah, Chris, also respect to him for that lap.
And coming off of the qualifying battle and more in your own lap, is there anything or a particular aspect to this circuit that you feel really is the core to Jerez, if you will, the one thing you need to master? Because to take pole position by only 200ths, there's that little edge, of course, which you have to find.
Yeah, but that 200ths of a second, that is not on the plan at that point, because you drive too hard so fast as possible. And you have to also have the luck with the traffic, and yeah, it was a very good lap from my point, and also for Chris at his point. But yeah, 200ths of a second is nothing. I think with a good eye you can see it.
Oh, indeed. And transferring that over into the race, we saw it was a short run to turn number 1, but you held on to the lead. And after that, there was some early pressure from Eddersford and company behind, but it seemed as though you were able to gradually break away as they focused more on battling each other.
Yeah, the start was very hard, because on the first lap of the first corner, someone go around, and yeah, I tried the right side, Chris take the left side. On the second corner we are in the middle, and it was very close. I hope to keep in front of him. That luck at that point, and I tried to follow the goal drivers so long as possible. And I saw Chris was in a fight with Chris Rance. So yeah, for me that was good. And yeah, so long as they have the fight hard, I know they have destroyed the tires also. And at that point, I was just follow so much as can the goal drivers and yeah, make good runs and keep the tires alive for what's happened at the end.
Indeed, and on that, running in clear air and really being able to dictate the pace of the race at your own command. Just take us through what the tyres were like for yourself in terms of, do they feel quite comfortable after the 45 minutes, or was it a case of you wanted to get out of the car at that point?
No, I think my worst tire was 47% I have left. So yeah, it was very comfortable for me. And it comes just because I can run my clear runs. And yeah, I try to keep that managed, like I say, so hard as possible. And then at the end, because some gold drivers also have trouble with the tires, and I had some luck that I can advance him and keep some places up at the end. But yeah, it was a little bit a tire strategy today in the hot temperatures. But yeah, it feels very good.
And just on that, towards the end of the race, catching up to a number of the gold class drivers, I have to ask, did you feel as though you were starting to get a little bit racy and wanted to take places, or were you just waiting to see how their battles played out?
I don't take any risk at that point. I had 8 seconds, I think, in front from Chris, and so I have to keep it good for the championship. And I just want to keep at the end more pressure to the gold drivers and see what they can do with left on the tires with him. And yeah, I saw, I think, Emil and other guys, yeah, have complete no tires left at the end, and so I can keep some paces for some paces with advances in points.
Well, I'm loving the focus on the Silver Championship right at the foreground of your mind. And with that, we now head to Road America in a week's time, and you've now got a 50-point advantage in the Silver Class Championship. How are you feeling for our final visit to the US of A?
Well, it looks more comfortable than it is, because you have to drive every week very hard and focus so much on the car, because you can go around in 1 second and then your race is complete over, and we have to keep the head high and yes, stay focused every round and see what happens. Not everything can change in 1 week, and yeah, that is not how you say, and not yeah, sorry, help me, Paul.
No, that's no problem. You can't take anything for granted, I think you're trying to say.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, indeed, and a good approach to have. And well, we do look forward to seeing how you get on at Road America. But just before we do let you go, Jeremy, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, I want to thank my parents, like they always watch every race of me, and also the guys from the team and everyone else that I forgot. So, and also for you, for every week, do the great job here. So yeah, and also the guys from Chris today, it looks a big gap, but Chris did a great fight today, and well done for his second place.
Well, Jeremy, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. As always, congratulations once again on your win today at the Jerez circuit. And we look forward to seeing you at Road America in 2 weeks' time. Not in 2 weeks' time, in 1 week time, I should say, as the championship continues to evolve. And, well, will you be able to make it another pair of wins? We'll have to wait and see. But until then, congratulations once more.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening.
So hearing there from Jeremy DeBova, the silver class winner today, and the DBR Moment Challenge driver, so focused on the silver championship. And I love that about him in terms of his mindset is on one thing only, and that is making sure that he gets the maximum possible points in class. And other places versus the gold drivers, where he can pick up 1 or 2, that's okay, but he's not concerned with it. And with that at the forefront of his mind, taking pole position by 200ths in the end. And as he said, there was no real one place over the course of that where he feels though he gained or had the edge. It came down to fine margins. It came down to lady luck in terms of traffic, and also just nailing the lap on the day, and in the end translating that into going into the race itself. With the incident that saw James Parker go around through turn at number 1, it meant that DeBova had to go one way and Eddersford, aka Chris Eddersford, had to go the other way, and that was enough for Jeremy DeBova to be able to hold on to the lead. But you can imagine if that played out slightly differently, then it could have been Chris Eddersford leading through the first few corners, and then we would have seen an alternative battle on our hands. But the key point being that once Chris Eddersford and Chris Rance started to battle behind, we then saw Jeremy DeBova able to break away, and as he said himself, able to manage the tyres, really massage them through the entire race, have a lot of life left. And when he caught up to the gold drive, just waiting behind them in the wings, putting on a little bit of pressure, but otherwise not forcing moves, and just focusing on bringing home that silver class win. And when he's not taking anything for granted, he knows you have to be at your 100% best through round to round and week in, week out. But with an advantage now of 50 points, plus also a 0-0 drop score already in effect for the fact he did miss rounds 4 and 5, it does mean that Jeremy DeBova effectively is the man to beat in the silver class now. But he won't be thinking that, he'll be thinking about just taking each result and seeing if he can add to his win count as of Road America. And we'll have to wait and see whether he can achieve it. But now coming on to our third entry for this evening, we've heard from our silver class winner, and we're going to be hearing from our second place silver driver, and it will be Chris Eddersford, who gets ready to join me in the interview room. And as he does so, we're going to be hearing his perspective on what has been an absolutely challenging day today, and I think a back and forth that he's not going to be forgetting in a hurry with regards to the fight between himself and Chris Rance, which went down to the absolute wire. And as he does join me now in the interview room, good evening to you, Chris, and well, I can only imagine the emotions that must be going through your mind right now with regards to that second place finish today.
Yeah, I'm quite happy actually for once, to be honest with you. I think I enjoyed the battle with the other Chris, went down to the absolute wire. I made a mistake, he made a mistake. I think then his tyres went. It was really good. Enjoyed it. Clean racing from Chris.
Well, indeed, it was one of the highlights for many that tuned in today, and I will vouch for that as well. But it didn't just go down to the wire in the race, it also went down to the wire in qualifying, with 200ths being the difference between you being on pole or you alternatively being in second place. It was second place at the end in the silver class, but it looked as though a lap that sprung to life right at the end.
Yeah, I mean, to tell a little bit of a secret, I was 4/10ths up on the last lap, and I binned it on the second to last corner. So I think I could have put it on pole, being honest with you. But Jeremy's pace in the race was really, really impressive. I actually got him at the start, and that's what the plan was. But then after a few corners, he managed to get me back. I just couldn't keep up with him.
Indeed, and off of that, knowing that your pace continues to grow, and it's one of the things that we've been really looking forward to seeing over the course of the season. You had quite a bit of bad luck in the opening few rounds, but taking the charge for the lead and in the end having to focus on P2, you then found yourself enveloped in a battle for second with another Chris Rance in the gleaming red UKSimRacing UK machine, and it was a battle that ran for the entirety of the race.
Yeah, I was just trying to not make a mistake. I think I got to like 35 minutes or something with him basically being side by side into the hairpin most laps. But I'd kind of sussed that if I braked at a certain point and defended the inside, then I was always going to get the better exit. So I just kept doing that every single lap. And then I think it was a little bit further on the track towards the last sector. I just dipped a tyre and on the grass a little bit and lost momentum, and he managed to get on my inside. So yeah, it was close. Really enjoyed it though. Chris is clearly a really clean driver, so it was good to have that understanding, let's say.
Oh, Most definitely. And then after losing the place with that minor mistake coming through turns 11 and 12, it was going to be a charge back through the final lap and through turn number 5. Looked so Rance went a little bit deep and you managed to put yourself up the inside. Plus also he seems to be quite critical of fuel.
Yeah, I think I spoke to him after the race. I think he'd run out of fuel or was running out of fuel, and he said that his tyres had completely gone. I could see that his tyres were going though, because when I made the mistake, I think I went back to like 3 seconds back or something, and I managed to pull a good chunk of that back in a lap, basically without Chris making a mistake. So I don't know whether fuel aside, whether or not I would have been able to get him or not, but definitely enjoyed it. Great race.
Oh, indeed, and I can hear that in your voice, the enjoyment you've had today, and really bringing to life all that pace we've seen throughout the season so far in the qualifying sessions, and notching a critical podium. With rounds continuing to wind down, we've got plenty more to go. You're up to P2 in the Silver Class Championship, 2 points ahead of FR20 Sim Racing's Adam Grieveson, with Steve Hobbs a further 5 points behind. How are you feeling at this point in the season with that second place?
So I think what are the final races? We've got Road America should be strong there, Montreal should be strong there, Silverstone should be strong, and Suzuka should be okay. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the endurance rounds, really. My attention span kind of goes, and I find I start making mistakes. But I feel as though work aside, and work's tough at the minute, as long as I'm able to get a similar amount of practice as I have this week, because I know the track's much better than I didn't know Jerez at all. I basically learned it from scratch. I should be more towards my Road Atlanta pace, I would say. So should fare well.
I see, and well, that is quite a statement in terms of the confidence you're taking into the future rounds, and well, hopefully that confidence will be rewarded. But just before we do let you go, Chris, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
The admin team, the stewarding team, the broadcasting team, and yourself. All the hours that you put in is very much appreciated. I'd like to give Chris Rance a shout out for such a great battle and being such a clean driver. That generally makes the racing enjoyable for me. And I'd actually like to give Thomas Cope a shout out. Aside from being absolutely rapid, he helped me before the race around stressing the importance of not ruining the tyres. So I think that potentially aided the result massively today.
Well, Chris, with that, it is an absolute pleasure to interview you as always. Congratulations once again on second place in class today. You fought hard for it and you've been rewarded for it, and we'll look ahead to Road America in a week's time. We wish you all the best in your preparations and are eagerly await to see how you get on at the Wisconsin State Circuit.
Thanks, Paul. Have a good evening.
You too. So hearing there from Chris Eddersford, our silver class runner-up today for the UKSimRacing admin team. And what a drive it was, missing out by 200ths in the end and admitting that he was on a lap that was 4/10ths faster at the end of qualifying. But a key mistake, seeing it all in the bin and for nothing. But then going into the race, we could see early on after the charge from Eddersford in battling with Jeremy Debova, it was going to be about Debova just gradually breaking away with that consistency at such a high end of pace, and therefore Eddersford having to focus on P2. Well, it's talking about the fact that he doesn't necessarily have the attention span for the endurance race as much as he would say the sprint and the feature race rounds, and understandably given the fact and they're much like many of the drivers on the grid, working a week of work, and indeed therefore having to invest all the energy after expending energy at work to get onto the grid and go racing. But he had to put all of his attention and focus on Chris Rance behind, who, as we see the pictures here of the two of them, nose to tail as they make their way into turn 13. And it was like this for practically the entire race. Plenty of side-by-side moments, critical mistakes being made after 35 minutes. But the key factor that swung it back in the favour of Eddersford was firstly the tyre wear, which seems though Rance had fallen off based on what we've now discovered and understood, but also the fuel in the car, where Rance just didn't have the fuel to get to the end of the race, unscaled on fuel capacity without having to try and creep the car across the finish line. And Edisford picking up a P2 that I think he'll definitely cherish going into the latter stage of this season, and time will tell whether he can follow it up or alternatively bring home his first win of the season. But now coming on to our final interview of today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll very shortly be hearing from Alex Hiscox and his thoughts on a third place finish, which has come with a degree of drama in terms of an early spin and turning things back around and pointing in the right direction to end up on the podium. But as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, we'll also hear his perspective on what was a strong qualifying session to be P4 on the silver class grid and with it P20 overall. And as he does join me now in the interview room, we welcome Alex Hiscox. And Alex, what a day it has been for yourself, in the fact a qualifying session which saw you P4 on the grid and quite close to being inside the top 3 in class, and then going into the race, early mistakes, which saw you have to absolutely mount a brilliant comeback drive, and in the end being rewarded for it with an unexpected, perhaps P3 on the podium.
Yeah, really rough start to the race. I've been telling the other drivers, and whilst we waited for this, that I didn't have the time because of my job to get any practice in on the track with other drivers around. So I've just been doing solo laps basically. So when I was in the traffic with the dirty air and the draft, it was really hard. So I had a couple of nearly spins, but luckily they weren't fatal to the race, and I was able to catch up ish in the end.
Now, before we come on to the race in more detail, talking a little bit about qualifying, it looked as though in the session for some time you were really pushing to be inside the top 5. P4 on the silver class grid and P20 overall. Was that about where you expected to be, or was there perhaps a little bit more time out there?
I think there's definitely more time out there. I feel like I could have placed higher. I had a couple of laps where I made some just off tracks, which were really annoying. And then I had another lap where unfortunately someone got in front of me through no fault of their own, really. And so I had a few laps scuppered. I feel like if I didn't make the mistakes I made, I would have been able to get a little bit higher than I was.
I see, and well, with the lap that was missed out in the end and having to start from P4 on the silver class grid, we saw you try and get quite a smooth start, and it was, to be fair, up towards turn number 1, and then after that having to dodge the wayward car, or the wayward cars of the field, everyone evading James Parker. It all seemed to go a bit wrong in the early stages.
Yeah, it was really rough. I mean, getting off the start wasn't too much of an issue, and luckily I didn't get caught up in any incidents. It was just my own mistakes, really. Losing it, I think, in the same corner, I think twice or 3 times. I'm not really sure exactly where, but once that happened and I'd already spun, I kind of just reset and just thought, right, I'm gonna just drive smooth, and then the race will hopefully eventually come to me. I could see Chris and his pack all fighting each other up ahead, so I was hoping that they'd all be pushing really hard, wearing out their tyres, and luckily for me, it worked out. I gained a couple of positions after.
And just on that, of course, tyres have been a huge subject of conversation in each of our interviews tonight, and throughout the whole of today, tyre conservation has been the critical factor. But with such an early set of spins, if you will, and mistakes, that puts a lot of heat into the tyres themselves, and really, some would argue, makes the tyres almost obsolete for a couple of laps. How did you manage bringing the tyres back into a comfortable place to drive them? Because some drivers would say, well, I need a new set of tyres now because they've been absolutely overheated to death.
Yeah, well, to begin with, I span, then my tyres were bad, and then I span again, and then my tyres are bad, and I think I span a 3rd time. I can't remember how many times I went around, but I think the 3rd or 4th time I got the message that I needed to chill out a bit and let the tyres cool down, so I did. And then they were all right then for the rest of the race, and I think because I wasn't in traffic, I was just kind of lapping on my own. I wasn't pushing mega hard. That gave me enough tyre life then for the end of the race to catch up a little bit on the guys whose tyres had really started to fall off.
I see, and as the race wore down and we started to move into the final 10 minutes, coming up behind the pack being led by Chris Edisford in that brilliant battle between himself and Chris Rance, we also saw Adam Greaveson, and then you seemed stuck onto the back of it, and it all started going wrong for most of the drivers in that pack.
Yeah, it did, fortunately for me, really, because I didn't think I had any hope of staying within significant amount of points otherwise, but yeah, they were pushing really hard. They were having a really good race, and when the tyres are falling off as much as they are at this track, mistakes can happen, and luckily all of my mistakes were at the beginning of the race and not the end.
Oh, indeed. And then coming out of the final corner to see Chris Rance running slowly with minimum fuel left in the car, and to suddenly pick up P3 at the end, I bet you couldn't quite believe it as you crossed the finish line to take your own checkered flag.
Yeah, it was it was a very lucky one, that's for sure. But hey, I'll take a freebie when one is there.
Well, some key points in the bag, and with this third place, say you've now moved up provisionally to P5 in the Silver Class Championship. Currently, the best part of what is 11 points behind Steve Hobbs, who is the second of the FR20 Sim Racing pair in P3, P4. But how are you feeling at this point with your championship progress and going to Road America in a week's time?
I'm very pleased. It's my first season driving the car. I've had to learn most of these tracks. I think except for Road Atlanta, I was very unfamiliar with them all. And so I'm quite happy with how I've done considering that. We'll see what happens in the next few races. I don't know the tracks, so we'll just have to see what happens. But Steve and Adam, I am aiming for them. That's the goal, is to get myself up into the top 4 or 3. Ideally, would be an ideal outcome to be there on the podium at the end of the season. But we'll see.
Well, it all continues at Road America a week from now, and we look forward to seeing whether you can keep that pressure on the championship contenders. But just before we do let you go, Alex, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, thank you to Patrik, who I know he had a rough race today, but he helped me out with some tips on how to get around the track, and that really helped me improve my time. So thanks to them, and as always, thank you to you. You're a brilliant commentator. Really makes the streams pop when you're watching, and shout out to Roxanne as always, who's pulled this all together, and the rest of the admin team and the stewards that keep it all running.
Well, Alex, it's been absolutely great to have you join me in the interview room this evening. Congratulations once again on your drive to third place in the Silver Class through all the trials and tribulations and everything in between. We look forward to seeing how you get on at Road America a week from now. But until then, happy practicing and have a fantastic evening.
Cheers, Paul. You too. Take care. Good night.
So hearing there from Alex Hiscox, the Team Wells driver in the Silver Class, who managed to bring home third place on the podium, albeit in the unexpected manner after multiple spins in the early stages of the race. And like you said there, after what was the third spin, deciding to get the message, which is right, I need to cool it down, calm it down, get the tyres in a better place, and just focus on driving my race. And in doing so, we did see a number of silver drivers start to fall by the wayside with their own mistakes. And as we said midway through the race, the mistake threshold as the race went on got lower and lower, in terms of the fact that it was becoming increasingly likely that drivers were going to make mistakes for the simple reason with the abhorrent temperatures on the track, it would mean that tyre life would be exceedingly low. But for Alex, he was able to preserve the tyres enough that in the end he could latch onto the back of the battle for P2, and when we did see it go wrong for Adam Greveson, the mistake for Greveson, and then subsequently the loss of fuel for what is Chris Rance, Hiscox was able to pick up the 2 places and return to the podium in the very last couple of metres before the checkered flag. And sometimes you've got to have a little bit of lady luck on your side for that Alex Hiscox say he never gave up, he never quit, and as a result, he's been rewarded for it. And will that continue at Road America a week from now? We'll have to wait and see. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And we'd like to say thank you to all 4 of our interviewees. And they included, firstly, Thomas Cope in the gold class for Olympus Esports Vanguard, our race winner overall and in the gold category. And into our 3 silver podium finishers, starting with our silver class winner of DBR Bowman Challenges, Jeremy DeBoer. And then to UKSimRacing admin teams, Chris Edisford, the runner-up. And then the second runner-up, our 3rd place finisher, who you've just heard from, Team Wales' Alex Hiscox. Congratulations to all 4 of them for their stellar performances. And we look forward to seeing plenty more from them in a week's time at Road America. And just to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that if any of these 4 drives have caught your attention and you want to vote for them as your driver of the day, do remember that you can vote for your driver of the day. The polling is open. Link is available in the YouTube chat, and voting closes as of midnight tonight, British Summer Time. That's BST or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. So make sure to cast your vote. It doesn't have to be for these 4 drives. It can be for anybody on the grid, but do let us know who is your driver of the day, and we'll let you know who won the award as of next week's broadcast. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, please firstly do let us know by subscribing to the channel and giving a like on the broadcast. But also, if you do want to know more about UK Sim Racing, perhaps you want to become a part of the community, or you just want to know more about us in terms of what we do on the virtual racing circuit, well, firstly, we'd recommend you do go to our official website. That's UKSimRacing.co.uk. You did see that website earlier on today, and there you can find out all about our latest ongoing series, including the Porsche Cup Season 7 and also the GT3 League Season 11, and what we've also got upcoming in the pipeline. But if you don't want to go to our website necessarily, but perhaps you just want to follow us on social media, the best place to do so is via our official Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_, where you can hear not just about our upcoming leagues, but also about the trials, tribulations, and efforts of our official esports teams. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our affiliates. They do include Swelliamida Sim Racing Coaching, whereby the creator of the Motor Racing Checklist, Swelliamida Sim Racing Coaching, can help take you and your sim racing to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Swelliamida has a coaching course to meet your needs. Plus, with Swelliamida being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PSCC, you know you're receiving coaching from the very best in the industry. We also have Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment, aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. D1 Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide, so no matter what your level of discipline, D1 Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. SimLab, the leading manufacturer of high-quality sim racing-related hardware. As a proud partner of Mercedes AMG Petronas Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experiences with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports, and with in-house engineering production facilities that combine Dutch design and high-end craftsmanship, SimLab is the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. Amazon, the company striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, including but not limited to Amazon Alexa, Amazon Prime, and Amazon's one-click shopping. And lastly, SRC Driver Academy, a division of Sim Racing Community. Elevate your sim racing skills with SRC Driver Academy. Their team of experienced professionals is dedicated to helping you reach your full potential without compromising on quality. But why choose them? Simply put, affordable quality coaching. SRC have experienced coaches who provide valuable insights and a competitive edge. They make high quality coaching accessible to all at an affordable cost, tailored to your needs and goals. You can learn race strategies, precision driving, and much more. They offer virtual coaching sessions at nearly all hours of the day, every day, ensuring flexibility for all. So join SRC Driver Academy today and unlock your true sim racing potential. Do visit their website to learn more and accelerate your sim racing career. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we accelerate ourselves to rounds 9 and 10 from Thursday the 10th of August 2023. A week from now, we make our way back to the United States of America for the final time this season for the classic circuit of Road America. Unchanged since its opening all the way back in the 1950s. One thing I can tell you that will change is that we will be seeing the grid orders be shaken up and down, we reckon, with the straight line speed challenge that the circuit presents. Become the end of it all, who will come out on top? We'll find out then, but until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I'm being your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.